one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, June 16th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 13 degrees. It's 12 in Smiths Falls, and here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. With just days before Parliament breaks for the summer, the federal government has introduced a new bill. This will help protect the French language across Canada.
More Francophones will be able to work and live in French.
Bill C-32 takes a multi-pronged approach to protecting French in federal workplaces, the Supreme Court, and the immigration system. It would also give the official language commissioner more power to compel companies like Air Canada or CN to tighten and enforce French language requirements. Official Languages Minister Mélanie Joly says C-32 is also designed to help protect English communities in Quebec. The Liberals designed C-32 to work in parallel with a bill tabled by the Quebec government, Bill 96, which has a similar goal of protecting French within companies. But with just 6 sitting days left on the parliamentary calendar and parties posturing for a likely fall election, Bill C-32 will likely be killed before seeing the light of day. In Ottawa, Nigel Newlove, City News.
City News time 9:01, and now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Lots of sunshine for us today and tomorrow, and then the wet weather returns Friday. The high today 22. It is on the cool side, a gusty northwest wind. Tonight partly cloudy and 9, and tomorrow sunshine, warmer 26. For today, the high 22.
And right now in Ottawa, 13 degrees. It's 12 degrees in Smiths Falls. The Ottawa Carleton District School Board approving its budget for the next academic year, but due to multiple factors, including the pandemic, a deficit is forecast.
Trustees approved the OCDSB's $1 billion operating budget and its $19.8 million capital budget to allow for student services to be maintained while also addressing increased costs associated with pandemic-related health and safety. The board is also forecasting a deficit of $14.9 million due to the pandemic and a decline in revenue caused by projected drop in enrollment. It will be writing to the Ministry of Education for permission to use its surplus to balance the budget. Director of Education Camille Williams-Taylor explains the budget is a significant workload on staff.
The staff recommended budget requires hours of interpretation, ministry funding and direction, as well as application of discretion.
This budget includes $135 million for special education, along with $5.2 million earmarked for Indigenous education. Alex Gouge, City News.
City News time 9:02. It cost you 3.6% more to live last month compared with May of last year. StatsCan says it is the largest yearly increase in the cost of living in Canada since May of 2011. The main culprit? Gas. Excluding gasoline, the Consumer Price Index in May was 2.5% more compared with 1 year ago. The American president and Russian president shook hands as they opened their summit in Geneva this morning.
President Biden and Russian President Vladimir Putin began their summit seated side by side in what appeared to be a library in the 18th century villa here in Geneva. The first meeting is small, the presidents and their top diplomats. It was a chaotic scene, reporters from the U.S. and Russia scrambling to capture images of the two presidents and trying to get them to answer questions. President Putin, through a translator, said he hoped the meeting will be productive. President Biden said it's always good to meet face to face. The meetings are expected to last 4 to 5 hours. Aaron Travers, ABC News, traveling with the president in Geneva.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau arrived back in Canada yesterday from a European trip, and after spending one night at a 3-star hotel, he's on his way home. Trudeau did test negative for COVID, so is allowed to leave the hotel to finish his quarantine at home. And if you're looking for a new way to get across the Ottawa River, you can try the new zip line. It opens next Thursday. Online booking opens up on Sunday. This is the Interzip Rogers zip line linking Ottawa and Gatineau. Rogers is the parent company of this radio station. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
When the headlines say X,
he's got the Y.
it's the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
I think when the day comes, Election Day, you can look back and say, this was the week Justin Trudeau won the election. You can circle it on your calendar, Second week of June, 2021. That's when Justin Trudeau won the election. Good morning. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News. We're here until noon. Thanks for coming along for the ride. Promises to be a busy day. We will have the very latest on COVID-19, vaccines, and variants. I think we're going to have some breaking local news, probably in the next 30 minutes or so. I see there is a media event today at the Ottawa airport, and a bunch of Liberal heavy hitters are going to be there, including local Liberal MPs Catherine McKenna and David McGuinty, Ottawa South, David McGuinty, but as well, Transport Minister Omar Alghabra. And there is to be some sort of announcement about the Ottawa airport. Now, I don't know what it's about, okay? But let's put our thinking caps on and think, what could it be about? What could it possibly be about? My guess, that's all it is, my guess is that it's a light rail announcement about the spur line and the LRT station at the airport. I suspect, I don't know, but I suspect that's what it's about. What else could it be about? It has to be about this plan for the 2.5 kilometer spur line to the airport. And more importantly, the LRT station at the airport, because what's the point of having a train go to the airport if there's no train station at the airport? And, as of this week, and the airport has been quite upfront about this, it doesn't have the money to be building a new station for light rail at the Ottawa airport. I mean, you know the way air travel is. The whole industry's been decimated. It's all the airport authority can do to keep the lights on at the place. So there's to be an announcement at 9:30. I don't know what it's about. 9:30, all will be revealed. I mean, the City Hall politicians, the mayor, his allies, they've said, hey, we'd love to have light rail go to the airport. We think it'd be a great idea. Link up public transit with the Ottawa airport. Sounds like a no-brainer. Just don't expect the city of Ottawa to pay for it. So the cost is supposed to be shared by the airport and the federal government. Just seems to me if this announcement is going to be about anything, it should be about something like that. And if it is about that, what is that? It's another election goodie, that's for sure. Another one for Catherine McKenna. The money pouring into Ottawa when it comes to transit, that announcements like that are always helpful for the incumbents come election time. Last week, electric buses. In fact, that's up for discussion at the Transit Commission this morning for City Hall, electric buses. And if my guesswork is right, throw this in for good measure, light rail to the airport. But nevertheless, my original concerns remain my original concerns with this whole idea. Okay? I'm not opposed to having light rail service the airport. But who's going to take 3 trains to get to the airport? Come on. Or who's going to take a bus and then 3 trains to get to the airport? I just don't think the route makes any sense whatsoever. But, oh my goodness, the funding announcements are coming fast and furious. So that must mean it's election time. You heard it, Parliament's winding down, right? And like I said, I think you can circle it on the calendar. This week is the week that Justin Trudeau locked it in. Second week of June. This is the week. If the election is this fall, this is the week they won it. I left the radio station yesterday around noon on the drive home. And I was thinking to myself, I think he's done it. I think he's locked it up. I think Trudeau's locked this thing up now. His party, it might be darn near impossible to defeat the Liberals in the next election. And you know my political leanings. It's not like I'm enthralled with the idea of that, especially a majority Liberal government. I mean, don't get me wrong. It doesn't have me doing somersaults, the idea of it, okay? But didn't you notice kind of a sense in the mood? A change in the mood? I did during the talkback hour yesterday. Topic was second doses, and I expected to hear about a gong show. Frustration about booking appointments, this kind of stuff. Because I was asking the audience about its experiences trying to get an appointment for a second dose of vaccine. But I didn't hear tales of gong shows. What I heard instead was happiness, gratitude, some frustration, but for the most part, a lot of people happy about being able to get a second dose, even if it means a road trip to Cornwall or Kingston to get it done. They'll make a day of it, they told me. You look around, the economy is slowly reopening. Yes, there is inflation. But hey, as long as you don't own a house, drive a car, or eat, don't worry about inflation. The Red Blacks are going to be back at TD Place later in the summer. We're going to talk about that later in the show. Already have fans in the stands at the Habs games. Border checkpoints have come down. On the Quebec side, Fête Nationale is around the corner. New language laws to celebrate. And soon it will be Canada Day. And yes, there should be Canada Day. So I think by the time September rolls around, most people will be double dosed. Children will be back in school. Much of the economy will have reopened. We might not even have to wear masks anymore. Wouldn't that be nice? Not having to wear a mask. And as for Mr. Trudeau, well, he'll be sitting in the catbird seat, won't he? He calls the election in September. We vote in October. Maybe. Massive Liberal majority government. Now, look, I don't run a psychic hawkline, but, that's more or less how I see it playing out over the next few months. And I think it's going to work out okay for Doug Ford, too, this time next year. But we'll talk about Doug Ford a little bit more tomorrow. For me, it's Team Trudeau. In focus today. Right after the 9:30 news, we'll score your political fix with our political analysts. Two great ones today, Jason Lietaer, Karl Belanger. So much to get into. You think about it. We've had a year and a half of pandemic life, lots of missteps, lots of screw-ups. We've even had some doozy scandals. Nobody's landed a punch on Trudeau. None of it has ever stuck to Trudeau. He's had his party in the lead in the polls the entire way. And you would just have to think it would take something extraordinary to change that trend. I'm just telling it like it is. I'm not popping corks on the bubbly here. I'm just telling it like it is. He has the Liberals with big leads over rivals in both Ontario and Quebec, and let's face it, that's where it really matters. We're going to talk about this. The Greens are in total chaos. Now, you might say, Rob, the Greens, who cares about the Greens? They've got 3 MPs, now they're down to 2 MPs. Well, more than 1 million people voted for the Green Party in the last election. Where do you think those 1 million votes are going to go? You think any of them go to the blue team? We have a no-name anti-Israel green floor-crossing MP feels more at home in the Liberal Party than the New Democrats. If this lead up to the election is anything like the last lead up to the election, Catherine McKenna won't be the only Liberal incumbent sporting giant novelty checks with multi-million-dollar funding announcements. They're going to happen every day in every riding from one end of the country to the other. Economy on the mend, people feeling better, big housing boom, lots of money saved over the pandemic. And it's hard for Aaron O'Toole. You got to feel for the guy sometimes. Remember Aaron O'Toole, leader of the opposition? Can he even get 5 minutes of airtime on a cable news network? So we're going to talk a lot about election politics this morning during our talkback hour, which we do every morning between 10 and 11 o'clock. And it's easy, the talkback hour. You call, we talk. I ask you a question just to get the conversation going. You give me a call at 750-1310. We boot things around for a few minutes, and generally it's quite pleasant. Generally. 750-1310. 750-1310. Look, a lot of people seem to think the next election is going to be the pandemic election. And Mr. Trudeau will be judged on his performance dealing with the pandemic. So, given that hopefully the pandemic is in its final stage, its dying days, I will ask you this morning, do you think Justin Trudeau and the Liberals deserve re-election based on how they performed during the pandemic? How would you answer that question? I'd love to hear from you this morning on the Rob Snow Show. Lots of other great stuff. It's not all politics. Most of it is, though. It's not all politics. City Hall Transit Commission today, as I mentioned, Sue Sherring, City Hall columnist, Ottawa Sun. Bruce McIntyre here with Valley View. He's with the Eganville Leader, so we'll get the latest update from up the line. Red Blacks back at TD Place later this summer. Mark Goudie on that, president of OSEG, and the latest on the Delta variant is next on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
I always knew I was going to own my own business, and I've always wanted to have a store. And I sort of figured when the right concept came together at the right time, I would move forward with that plan. And so through doing some environmental initiatives in the restaurant group that I was with prior to opening this store, it just triggered my path towards being more environmentally conscientious and wanting to make more of a difference, and hopefully encouraging, inspiring other people to want to do the same, at which point the idea for All Eco was born. I have some really fun products. I have a really wide spectrum of products. So the things we look for in terms of qualifying products are sustainably made, upcycled, recycled, zero waste, all natural, no harmful chemicals to like the environment or to our bodies. We have like fun stuff, so like really clean burning candles. Lots of really natural body care and skin care. I put a real emphasis on Canadian products. I really try to support up-and-comers, and I always source Canada first. The refill bar is really important to me. It's really huge. I think that's been exciting as well, because I thought it was going to be a real process in convincing people that this is a better way to go. And actually it was just like right away there was a built-in affinity towards doing refill, which has been great. We closed, I think, probably we were closed down by before the second week of March. Just didn't feel we could comfortably or confidently stay open, even though I do sell essential products, like in terms of the cleaning. But we just didn't feel we could make a safe space for ourselves or our customers at that time, and especially with the information we had at the time. So we did close our doors, at which point I did not have a website, because that was I hadn't even scheduled myself to have a website at that point. So that was sort of like full speed moving towards that and trying to drive the business at the same time, still get myself on the map because I was so new. So during that time, as we were building the website, we were still doing a lot of video shopping and private shopping, online shopping, like online phone, text. Any way I could do business, I was doing it. And there was really a nice show of support for my business during that time, which was really, really encouraging. And now, we are fully set up online too.
Strong opinions.
Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
The Delta variant was first identified in India. And researchers have said it's more transmissible than the Alpha variant, which was first identified in the UK, and that was the one that brought Ontario and Quebec the third wave, the lockdown, stay-at-home orders, curfews when it comes to the province of Quebec. So how worried should we be about the Delta variant? Let's get into that right now with the help of Dr. Donald Vinh, director, host-directed Immunotherapy to Fight Infectious Disease Research Program, otherwise known as HIFI. That's at McGill University Health Center Research Institute. Good morning, Doctor.
Hi, Rob.
Nice to hear from you.
Thank you.
How worried are you about the Delta variant?
You know, I can't say that whenever you hear a variant, you can't say, well, I'm just going to dismiss it, right? Because as you know, you can always underestimate your enemy and be really burned. Obviously, this variant is a concern. We have to be vigilant about it. We have to monitor it. I'm not sure, however, I'd go into the phase of anxiety about it. All we know is that the data that's coming out of the UK tells us a very clear plan of how to get this under control, which is to fully vaccinate everybody. And that's actually achievable and feasible, right? So if that's the case, then I'm not anxious. I just have to make sure that people do their part and get vaccinated.
Why would it be more transmissible?
Oh, there's a variety of reasons as to why a variant can be more transmissible. It could be because when it gets expelled into the air, it has changes or mutations in its protein that allows it to stick better to our human cells. So when it goes from one person to the next, it can stick a little bit better. An alternative or perhaps an additional explanation is also sometimes once it gets into the cell, it can reproduce faster so that when a virus reproduces, it produces what we call progeny or baby virus particles. And how many baby virus particles are produced from one original virus particle will influence how transmissible it becomes.
Okay. So as we make our way through the course of this pandemic, and hopefully we're in the final innings here, I do wonder about the science behind variants, because we're all kind of lay people when it comes to this. Is it a case of these variants of the virus that they are adapting? Are they becoming stronger? Are they becoming smarter? Can viruses, for example, outwit immunity?
In theory, yes.
Okay.
But in reality, that's probably not the case. So you know, the virus has a certain bag of biological properties that allows it to be what it is. Okay. And whenever it reproduces, obviously it can acquire mutations or changes in its genetic material. Those mutations sometimes actually are bad for the virus, and so there are some offsprings who get a mutation. Some viral offsprings that get a mutation, and it's a dead end for them. They die. They can't reproduce. Others, they get a mutation and it actually doesn't change their biology in any meaningful way. And then there are other very rare situations where you get a variant, like the ones we've been talking about, because there's been a change in its biological property. However, the virus can't change too much its biology, otherwise it actually becomes too much of a dead end, because then it can't infect properly and it can't reproduce properly. So there's only so much variation that a virus can undergo.
Okay, so would you be surprised to see even more variants then?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Okay. So we will for sure see variants. And in fact, even though we're talking about a handful of variants like Alpha and Delta and that kind of stuff, in fact, if you look at the map of the world with all the variants, there's like hundreds of variants.
Oh, really?
But the question is how many of them are relevant, right? How much of them are actually having an impact on people? And well, that is why there's only a handful of them that we're talking about. But the reality is that there will always be variants. The reason there will always be variants is because there will be ongoing community transmission. So the solution to preventing variants is to prevent community transmission, and the way to prevent community transmission is with vaccination.
Right. And wouldn't you call the seasonal flu a variant? Because it's different every year, right? And that's why the flu shot has to be different every year. Am I right?
Right. Obviously, not related to COVID, but yes. Right. So the flu is exactly the same thing. Every year there are variants. In fact, there are a few variants, and that's why the flu shot has actually a cocktail, basically, of the most common variants that are circulating in the southern hemisphere, like typically Australia. They have their flu season before we do, so they predict what we're going to get, and then we use their data to be able to concoct the next flu shot.
I mean, one of the big questions I think a lot of people have is, especially, we've done very well at doing first doses of vaccine. We're very much, compared to our peer countries, playing catch up when it comes to getting everyone fully vaccinated. Agreed?
Yeah.
Okay, so what level of protection is offered against the Delta variant from having one dose of vaccine? What's our understanding at this point?
So, the data, the only way we're going to be able to answer that data is to look at what's going on in other countries, because we're still putting together the Canadian data. Fortunately, the Delta variant's not a major issue across Canada, but it is in the UK, for example. In the UK, if we look at the latest data, we know that of the people who had the Delta variant, 2/3 were not vaccinated. They did not get a single dose. Okay?
Not a single dose. Okay.
Not a single dose.
All right.
2/3 of the people who were infected didn't get a single dose. About a quarter of people, so about 22%, got one dose. But we have to remember, though, that we don't know when they were infected relative to that one dose, because after one dose, it still takes about 3 to 4 weeks for that dose to kick in and provide any protection. So we don't know if it's necessarily a quote-unquote failure of that one dose, or if it's just because the dose didn't get a chance to provide it or exert a protective effect. And then if you look at the rest of the data, we know that it's somewhere around, if you look at people who are hospitalized, about 11% of people who are hospitalized were fully vaccinated. So 11% of the people with the Delta variant. So that tells us that, and that's not surprising either, by the way, because we know that there are people who can be fully vaccinated and don't respond fully to the vaccine because of underlying medical problems like cancer and dialysis and transplants. And that really highlights two things. First of all, you need to get vaccinated to protect yourself against the variant, but you also need to get yourself vaccinated to protect the other people who are fully vaccinated but can't respond to the vaccine. That's what the UK experience is telling us. Those are the lessons we need to learn. Get yourself fully vaccinated as soon as possible, because if you don't, you're going to end up like those people who are hospitalized in England.
Right, but again, for maximum effect, maximum protection, you need to be fully vaccinated. Fair enough?
Absolutely. So in the UK, we know that a quarter of the people who got the Delta variant had only one dose.
Okay.
That's all we know.
Okay. All right. Is your sense of it that we're winning right now, Dr. Vinh?
I think we are winning, but I think we have to remember what the goal is here, right?
Okay.
We often hear in the news people say we need to get to 75%, vaccination levels to get herd immunity. I would actually qualify that we need to get to at least 75%. And that's because of the fact that there will be variants that come out, which may or may not, compromise a little bit the efficacy of the vaccine. And so that little bit of compromise means that we need to make sure that a higher number of people are vaccinated. And it's very simple, right? If you're fully vaccinated, you are a dead end for the virus. The virus can try to infect you, but you will be protected from severe disease, and you will decrease your risk of transmitting it to other people. And if the virus can't transmit, it can't make other people sick, it can't develop into a new variant, so you're doing your part.
Thank you, Dr. Vinh. Very nice to hear from you this morning.
Thank you very much, Rob.
Dr. Donald Vinh, McGill University Health Center Research Institute. Your political fix. After the news on City News.
101 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, June 16th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, it's 14 degrees, and in Smiths Falls, 13. Here's what's making news this hour. Federal government has committed $6.4 million to the Ottawa International Airport. That funding going to construction of the light rail station at the airport. This will be a 3-story connecting to the terminal with an LRT platform. Now, construction expected to be completed by next year. The airport also receiving another $5.7 million. That's from Transport Canada's Airport Relief Fund for its operations. The Prime Minister spent one night at a 3-star hotel near the airport when he returned from Europe yesterday. After a negative COVID test today, Justin Trudeau allowed to leave the government-designated hotel and head home for the rest of his 14-day quarantine. Closure on Stevenage Drive due to a suspicious package. Police were called just after 6:30 to the 2300 block of Stevenage. Road closures put in place while the package was examined. It was determined not to be dangerous. The road has since reopened. Inflation rate rose 3.6% in May from 1 year ago. StatsCan reports it was the biggest yearly increase since May of 2011. It says increased price of growth in May was led by housing, passenger vehicles, and gasoline. City News Time, 9:32. I'm Andrew Boyle. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The world is changing.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's time to score your political fix. And joining us this morning to go through the complicated world of Canadian politics, Karl Belanger, the president of Traxxion Strategies. Good morning, Karl. Welcome back.
Good morning.
And Jason Lietaer, the president of Enterprise Canada. Welcome back, Jason.
Morning, guys.
So the three of us talking about the Green Party. Who would have ever thunk it? But the Greens are in chaos. Let me ask you, given everything that's going on, and let's review everything that's going on. Party leader Annamie Paul was facing a possible non-confidence motion from the leadership executive, something that appears to have stalled right now. Elizabeth May is not playing nice in the sandbox. Says Paul should apologize to Jenica Atwin for crossing the floor to the Liberals. The Quebec Green Party leader wants Annamie Paul to resign. Noah Zatman, who's a senior advisor to Annamie Paul, has accused, quote-unquote, Green MPs, well, there's only 2 of them left, Green MPs of anti-Semitism. And let's face it, she's running in the wrong riding. She's chosen to run where she lives, Toronto Centre. She's going to get crushed. Is the Green Party, Karl, self-destructing right in front of our eyes? What do you think?
It sure feels like it. And it's too bad, really, because a couple of years ago, the Green Party was on kind of a roll. You know, they had broken through in Ontario, electing the first MPP. They held the balance of power in British Columbia. They held the balance of power in New Brunswick. They came close to becoming government in PEI, and then ended up forming the official opposition for the first time in their history. And federally, they ran into the federal election and elected 3 MPs, a record. And there we are today. They've lost 1 MP. There's rumor about another one. There's a power struggle between the former leader and the new leader. And they've plummeted in the poll to the point that they are competing with Maxime Bernier for attention. That's not where they wanted to be, and that's not where I expected them to be at this point.
Annamie Paul should try to get her arrested. She'll get some more coverage, I guess. Jason, what do you think? Self-destruction right in front of our eyes here for the Green Party?
I guess she should get hammered and host the parliamentary press gallery dinner, and things will go really well.
Omar Carter!
The listeners. Boy, there's no such thing as bad publicity, I was told, but I think that the Green Party's putting that to the test. Like, when you hear about the Green Party, it should be about, hey, we want to make the environment cleaner. That's what people expect out of the Green Party, and they don't expect sort of intrigue, chaos, and this backstabbing. It's so funny. I thought I was laughing when Karl said they're competing with Maxime Bernier for attention, and all these articles, talk about their quote caucus. It's a couple of people, right? Like it's just a conference call. It's like the three of us. We're the Green Party.
We are the caucus right here.
It's the same size group.
The Common Sense Caucus meets today.
Exactly. It's two people just calling each other. But I will say this. I think there was a lot of hope in the Green Party a few years ago. I think Karl's got that bang on. They started to really, really do well. Ms. Paul, sort of young, black leader from Toronto, seemed to be well-spoken, gets a lot of TV love and airtime.
Oh, yeah.
I think there was
she's very engaging. She is, yeah.
She's great.
Yeah.
So I think there was a lot of optimism, and now they're just being driven apart. And Karl mentioned Mike Schreiner, one of the finest MPPs in the Ontario legislature, regardless of party. Very, very, very good. I actually, before this, a couple of years ago, I remember I was at Queen's Park at an event. I said to Mike, are you going to run federally? But what's her name? Elizabeth Mays, looks like she's done. Are you going to run? He said, no, I don't think so. I'm going to stay here. That party right now with Mike Schreiner, they would be a serious contender to take away Trudeau's majority. And this thing that we've got going on right now, these guys just aren't going to be players.
How much of this, I do wonder, is of Elizabeth May's doing? What do you suspect, Karl?
Their fingers all over this.
All over it,
over this. I mean, you knew there was troubles ahead when, even before the new leader was elected of the Green Party, she was in the media saying that the new leader was not going to be in charge. Trouble was brewing.
Yeah.
And there's here she is in the media refusing to support her and asking her to apologize and acting like she's still the master of this party. And it's not... I mean, it's unusual for a party leader to remain on board and stay as part of the caucus and stay in politics after there's a change. Usually they fade away. There's a few exceptions. Sometimes they come back. But Elizabeth May stayed, and it feels like she never really wanted to give up any of the power. So there's a question: why did she leave in the first place?
Right. Yeah. Agree, Jason? Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say no. Listen, Elizabeth May, she was really great at getting a movement to coalesce. She picked, the right thing, right place, right time, right? Like there's a lot of people interested in the environment right now. She had a really nice little thing going. It was time, let's say she was the founder, right? Think of it as a Silicon Valley thing. She was the founder of the party, really, and the movement.
The elder.
It was time for her to move on, right? And go live on Salt Spring Island and sort of, be happy for what she's built. She's obviously not willing to. And then it's another thing, and I don't want to get into the ideology of the sort of the Palestine-Israeli conflict, but I will say that, and Karl's dealt with this in his own party as well when he was running things at the NDP. There's some really tough issues in those, and it sort of always bubbles to the surface. Like that's what's the match that lit the fuse here, which is, are we Zionists? Are we support the Palestinians? Are we, and this advisor, it all just blew up, and it's without litigating who's right or wrong, because we could do that all day. Those kind of problems always sort of, and without strong leadership, you just can't keep that kind of stuff down. So
it's so sorry, Karl.
Point here, Rob.
Yeah.
Israel-Palestine is what lit this fire and led Jenica Atwell from leaving the caucus. But tell me, what is the percentage of Canadians who cast their ballot because of the Israel-Palestine conflict? Yet it consumes the Green Party right now. It has consumed the NDP for years because of very vocal, very passionate activists on both sides of the issues struggling for power within their party. But it's not an issue that is at the top of mind for most Canadian voters. So it is fascinating to watch how this issue is causing trouble.
Yeah, it's not the climate emergency. It's not the climate crisis. It's not getting to net zero. It's none of that stuff.
That's the irony, Rob, right?
Yeah,
the Green Party says it's about one thing and one thing only, environmental conservation and a green, future for our kids.
Right, which right now is a winning issue, right? That's a winning issue.
What the hell are you talking about this for?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Plus, what's so weird is this, there's so many weird things, but this twist that they should beg her to come back because usually that's not how floor crossers are treated in Canadian politics. I mean, like don't let the door hit you on the way out. Make sure you burn that bridge the moment you cross it. You are supposed to be persona non grata to me. You are dead to me, okay? Yeah. Not, please come back, Jenica. Please come back. Oh, come on. Give me a break.
It's doing politics differently, Rob.
Yeah, it sure is. So, I mean, this is, people are probably wondering, why are these three guys talking about the Green Party? They got 3 MPs. But they also had 1 million votes in the last election, almost 1.2 million votes in the last election.
They attract protest votes from both sides, right?
Yeah,
they attract
so who
protest
benefits
votes from the right and the left on people who are pissed off because they're slightly libertarian, slightly fiscally conservative sometimes, and with this environmental sort of conscience. And they're a place that you can park your vote if you don't like what's on offer. And that's, let's face it, that's going to be the case here, right? So the big beneficiary, I think, here is Jagmeet Singh, number 1, and Justin Trudeau, number 2.
But Jagmeet Singh, number 1, not the Liberals.
I think Justin in certain areas is a big beneficiary of this because if you don't like Trudeau and you don't like O'Toole, you got a likable guy to park a vote with.
Okay. How do you view it? 1 million votes at stake.
Yeah, 1 million votes. It's a lot of votes. They were flirting with double digits in the polls, and now they're below 5%. And so those voters have gone somewhere else. And I think Jason is right that even though the Green Party is not the traditional left-right party, they get their votes from every pool. But in terms of the narrative, the main beneficiary is Jagmeet Singh and the NDP, which probably shows why the NDP is a little high in the poll right now, a little higher than usual, because the narrative is that the NDP doesn't seem to have to worry about the Green Party anymore. So they don't need to look down the tree; they can look up, and that's much better in terms of a political narrative for a party than when there were stories after stories about the Green Party maybe taking over the NDP as the third voice in Canada.
Okay, well, that's a nice segue. Let's jump right to the NDP. We'll talk about the election timing after the break. Chantal Hébert, writing in the Toronto Star this week, 2 polls, quote here, 2 polls this week pegged NDP support about 6 points above its score in the last federal election. In Ontario, the Angus Reid poll found the NDP running neck and neck with Ontario Premier Doug Ford's Tories. In Manitoba, the Democrats enjoy a small lead on Brian Pallister's Conservatives. If an election had been held this month, Rachel Notley would have been on track to win. In BC, John Horgan's NDP government leads by a margin of 2-1. Karl, but is she making too much of this provincial strength versus the federal story with the NDP, or is it a party with momentum right now?
Well, it is a party with some momentum, certainly. It is the NDP is lucky to be the natural alternative, if you will, in the prairie provinces. So if there's any kind of problems with the premiers, and they are certainly in the case of Jason Kenney and Brian Pallister, then the NDP becomes de facto the government in waiting, and will get the discontent, and will harvest the discontent votes. So there's that dynamic in play, something that we're not seeing in Saskatchewan, by the way. In Ontario, Andrea Horwath and Jagmeet Singh were in the same caucus for years. They work together. The organizations are in sync, and the federal NDP is certainly benefiting from the strength of Andrea Horwath. In fact, if an election was held today, the poll seems to suggest that the NDP would get more seats in Ontario than they did during the Orange Wave of 2011, which would be a huge feat. The flip side of that for the NDP, of course, is that they are far away in 4th place in Quebec and nowhere to be found in the Atlantic provinces, especially after having heard the announcement that Jack Harris, their sole Atlantic MP from Newfoundland, was not running again. So, there's upside somewhere, but there's lots of downside still to the NDP.
I think the Liberals could do a repeat of 2015 and win every seat again in Atlantic Canada, the way things are going right now. I really do believe that. Jason, what do you think? NDP momentum. What do you think?
Well, it's...
this is right in your wheelhouse, buddy. Come on now.
Smiling Jack, smiling Jagmeet. I think Karl's pretty much nailed it. They got some good and some bad. So the provincial polls, listen, I love Chantal Hebert's analysis normally. That stuff generally doesn't translate. And let's be honest, Andrea Horwath's not going to be Premier of Ontario anytime soon. If the next Premier is probably Doug Ford, and if he doesn't win, probably Stephen Del Duca. And so, you take Ontario sort of out of the mix. I think there's bad news in Quebec for the NDP, and now, there was bad news last time. It's, comparatively not as bad as it was when they were losing, 30 seats the last time because they don't have as much to lose anymore. They are very strong. Karl is bang on. So John Horgan is going to win again. He's probably got one more out in BC. That's good news for Mr. Singh to build a base out of. They're going to do better in Alberta than they did last time, right? Ms. Notley has done a really good job as opposition leader out there. Yeah. They're going nowhere in Saskatchewan, and they got a legitimate chance in government in Manitoba. So the answer is from Manitoba out westward, they're on the move. In Ontario, Jagmeet has a chance to campaign and get a lot more votes. Whether or not it translates to seats, I don't know. I think the Liberals are going to do quite well in Toronto. And out east, it's a real blow for them to lose Harris, as Karl outlined.
Okay. We'll be right back. Part 2, we'll talk more about the timing of the election. This is your political fix on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
It's a space that needs to be lived in. It's a space that people, have to have an experience of more than just art on the walls. I think, yes, the art on the walls is fun, and it's fun to walk around and see all the beautiful things, and the way Dominic and Edith have curated the gallery is certainly something worth seeing. But coming by and asking questions, again, to Dominic's point of view is, interrupt him, ask questions. I'm here on most of the days too. We have Luce that comes in, Nancy that comes in. So we have quite a few opportunities for people to come in and see the process, and of course ask a few questions. It's a great space. Basically, the one event that we did do, is the jazz shows, the jazz and blues shows. And I think the weird thing to let you know is that the acoustics in here are really amazing. I think that was the first thing that blew me away when we started doing shows, or when I was helping out with the shows. The other part of the business too is we do rent it out for special occasions too. So a few weddings, birthday parties, product launches, that kind of thing. So they're also a lot of fun. We do have one artist that's from the States, but of the 30-odd artists, the rest are from either Quebec, Ontario, and one beautiful woman from BC. It's definitely part of the philosophy to maintain and canvas and show the beauty that we have in our backyard. You have the very, very strong personalities in Edith and Dominic, of course. It's wonderful to see how that actually balances out in the rest of the gallery. Without necessarily being, an objective, we basically have half female artists and half male artists in this gallery. I can't say it's anything more than choosing the best people, and that's just the way it is. And I love that. I think it's great. You go through and you're like, wow, it's all pretty cool. And it's half are women and half are men. It's cool. Like everyone else, we didn't know what to think, right? It's overwhelming at first. You just know that things are closed. And now you're trying to figure out what you do during that downtime, which I think everyone did. And I think in March, the first close, the first shutdown, it was a lot of actually recuperating and resting and not worrying too much on the spot. It's running a gallery is a bit like running a marathon with sprints. So there comes a time where, it's actually nice to just take a break. And then you wake up and realize that, okay, now it's time to wake up and deal with this new reality. From my perspective anyways, I think a gallery can be overwhelming, and I like to make it fun. So you're going to come in, I'll ask you questions, I might even joke around with you. The most people come here, they're not really going to buy art, but they could have a fun time and talk about it, right? And one of the things the gallery does offer is for local purchases, we'll be happy to drive it to your house and hang it for you.
fun.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News 101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
Part 2, your political fix. Karl Belanger from Traxxion, Jason Lietaer from Enterprise. Hey, Jason, when's the election? What are you hearing? What do you know? When is the election going to be?
The Liberals are talking internally. Like they're pretty excited about, a sometime in August and September or early September call. And there's a lot of different factors there. But riding the momentum of second doses being available, distributed, and some opening up, and before we get too worked up about the Delta variant before sort of flu season. So the window's this fall. They obviously, the third wave kicked up in the spring. They couldn't do that. They were certainly planning for an election in the spring that they couldn't do, and I understand why they couldn't call that. So, there's a lot of different factors. I think I heard Karl the other day talk about circling a date a little later than September. So I'll let him sort of break his guesses. But okay. I think it's probably late September, early October.
Okay. What do you think, Karl? When's the election?
Yeah, well, I circled October 25th on my calendar as the last possible day for an election being held. But I think the window is opening. I think that Justin Trudeau probably regrets not calling it last August, when there was no second wave yet in sight, when things were going well, when the mood of the country was pretty good. And then, if it had not been for that little pesky "we" scandal, I think we would have had an election. And now we are
Those
here.
Kielburgers ruining the party.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that the further away you move from the pandemic, the worse are the chances of the Liberals of winning a majority, because people's concerns will move to other issues, and those issues are not necessarily as good for the Liberals. Certainly they weren't before the pandemic hit, and the approval ratings of the Trudeau government and the voting intention went up because of the pandemic, during the pandemic, despite the flaws, despite the criticism, despite the mistakes, despite the 20,000 dead. People were generally satisfied with Justin Trudeau's response, and they will soon forget if we move into other issues.
Okay. This whole idea that MPs serve 6 years, they qualify for their pension. How big an issue is that, do you think, Jason? Do you think it factors into it? Is it an issue that they're considering? Yes?
100%. By the way, I thought you were going to do a Scooby-Doo kid there on the Kielburgers. I thought you were going to say, like, I would have done it if it wasn't for those pesky kids, that kind of... I thought you were going to get into that kind of thing, but I was sort of looking forward to that. It's a pretty big deal, the 6-year thing. It's actually the only confounding variable in my sort of thinking and analysis that tells you that he's got to go a little earlier before people start getting worried about the Delta variant, and people start going, again, right? So, so from a caucus management perspective, and by the way, Mr. Trudeau is not great at caucus management. I know that that might sound like heresy. That's not partisanship talking. He's not great at it. Brian Mulroney was the best. He's the gold standard. Chrétien was pretty good at times. Harper a little cold. Not so great. Martin okay. Trudeau's not so great, right? Like he sort of floats above his people.
Yes.
And he's done enough cabinet shuffles that those who know that they're not getting into cabinet know they're not getting into cabinet, and there's a little bit of unrest at times. So caucus management actually does matter for them. And trust me, the ability to get a full pension and without being elected again, like you better be sure. Like if you're a Liberal MP and you're sitting there and you're like, wait a second, we're going to go 1 month before
I qualify for my pension. Why would you do that to me? Right?
Crazy, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So you better be sure. So that's the kind of calculation that. Now it doesn't mean that they won't do it. It doesn't mean that they can't do it. If it's a risk benefit judgment, right?
Yeah.
But your analysis has to factor that in.
And the first Monday after the 6 years the limit is reached is October 25th.
October 25th. Okay. All right.
And so now you're finding out, you're pulling back the curtain and finding out why Karl, who's a real pro, has picked that date, right?
Yeah. No, it's very interesting. Okay. So is the ballot question then the handling of the pandemic? The handling of the pandemic. And that's what will be top of mind for voters, given that we think it's going to be in the fall. So it will still be kind of top of mind. Will be, hopefully, fingers crossed, it'll basically be a mopping up exercise at that point, one would think. But, and they'll judge Trudeau for better or worse on how his government did during the pandemic. And that's the election question. What do you think, Karl?
The case for making that the ballot question had to be made during the pandemic.
Yeah.
The federal opposition has failed to do it to some extent. Certainly not in the way Rachel Notley was able to in Alberta, or Webb Cunyu in Manitoba, or the opposition in Ontario. I think there's a reason why these three premiers are way down, and it's because no matter what their decision was, the perception of the people is that they failed to protect their people. That's not the case federally. Even though there was a case to be made, they haven't made it. So I would be surprised if they were somehow going to be successful to do it during the election, especially when the Liberals will talk about the future. We'll talk about the next stage.
Yeah,
we'll
to me, and I think we've already seen them rehearsing those lines.
Absolutely.
We have your back, we had your back, build back better, you take your pick, any one of them. So, yeah.
Maybe got back. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, who knows? Yeah. But what do you think? Yeah, Jason?
Karl's hang on.
Yeah.
If you're going to prosecute the case, you got to prosecute it while the case is happening, not after the fact. And the opposition didn't do a great job in Ottawa. And by the way, this is one where I think Rob, I don't come on this program and crap on the media very much, but I will say the ride that Mr. Trudeau has gotten through this pandemic pales in comparison. Like, look at the ride that Mr. Ford and Mr. Kenney have gotten. Like, I mean, literally, just reporters screaming at them day in, day out, blaming them for sort of every single problem. Not saying they haven't made mistakes. All of the governments have made mistakes.
Do you take personal responsibility for people who have died?
Yeah, you killed these, there's blood on your hands.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't seen anyone. Like, listen, if there's blood on Mr. Ford's hands or Mr. Kenney's hands, trust me, there's blood on Mr. Trudeau's hands. His handling of the border was abysmal. They didn't put any real play measures for over a year. They really screwed up vaccine procurement. It's been a success story now, but we forget how the early days were sort of really poorly done. There's all sorts of different things that they sort of messed up. That said, it wasn't prosecuted at the time. The media, I think, generally thinks he did an okay job. The guy's made of Teflon, honestly. The idea that he's not wearing some of the failures. But the truth is, I will say this: Canada did do okay. And this is I'm a conservative talking. Canada did do okay, and whether that you attribute that to governments or you think it's despite them, but Canada, Quebec, Ontario, very big population centers, bigger than a lot of U.S. states, really did generally okay. Quebec came out of the gate with a really sort of poor first couple of months. It's been very good since. Canada, a couple of big hiccups. Ontario, a couple of big hiccups in long-term care and other things. But the truth is, we've done a lot better than most other areas of the world. And I think any objective analysis says that. So it's hard for me to say, there were hiccups, but it was okay.
Okay. Karl Belanger and Jason Lietaer, thank you so much for this morning.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Very satisfying. Political Fix this morning. We'll continue our political discussion during our Talkback Hour here on The Rob Snow Show on City News.
news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, June 16th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 14 degrees, 13 in Smiths Falls. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Federal government has committed $6.4 million to the Ottawa International Airport. That money is going to construction of a light rail station at the airport. This will connect the terminal to an LRT platform. Construction expected to be completed by next year. Now, the airport is also receiving another $5.7 million from Transport Canada's Airport Relief Fund, that is for its operations. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau already out of the hotel phase of his 14-day quarantine period. He was allowed to check out this morning after receiving a negative COVID-19 test from an airport near the hotel, from a hotel near the airport. Trudeau spent about 12 hours at the hotel after he returned to Ottawa last evening from his trip to the G7 summit in England and meetings with European leaders in Belgium. City News Time, 10:03. Now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Lots of sunshine for us today and tomorrow, and then the wet weather returns Friday. The high today, 22. It is on the cool side, a gusty northwest wind. Tonight, partly cloudy and 9, and tomorrow, sunshine, warmer, 26. For today, the high, 22.
And right now, 14 in Ottawa, 13 degrees in Smiths Falls. As the pandemic continues, OC Transpo continues to feel the effects of the restrictions. Pat Scrimgeour with OC Transpo says the month of May saw ridership levels at 20% of what would be considered usual.
It's a little higher than it was earlier in the year, but still very low. And that continues to be due to the stay-at-home order. We'll be watching ridership very closely through the month of June and as restrictions continue to lift over the months to come.
Now, in the 2021 budget, OC Transpo estimated ridership levels would be at 70% pre-COVID. A recent report on leaky pipes throughout the province singled out the town of Smiths Falls, an area with a higher concentration of drinking water that gets wasted through leaky pipes. One analysis estimate the rate could be above 40%. Now, Jason Barlow is manager of waste and wastewater treatment with the town and tells City News why the numbers are so high.
Some of the issue is to do with the older infrastructure. We have about 15% of our pipes in the ground are over 100 years old. So with the older infrastructure, there is some issues with the degradation of the water quality.
Now, he says they run bleeders to keep water fresh, and there's more accountability to limit the water that does get wasted. Barlow says they have been making noticeable strides, but there are larger projects that need to be completed that may need some funding from the provincial and federal governments. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
I'm going to be keeping track of your answers today, too. Not officially a rapid poll, but I'm keeping track nonetheless. We're going heavy duty into politics this morning during the Talkback Hour. Pandemic response, and Justin Trudeau's re-election chances. That's kind of the theme for the hour at 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. Do Justin Trudeau and the Liberals deserve to be re-elected because of their handling of the pandemic, their response to the pandemic? 750-1310, 750-1310, yes or no, why or why not? Okay? It's very easy. Let's get into it, okay? And take calls for the hour. We'll see how things look at the top of the hour. Do Justin Trudeau and the Liberals deserve to be reelected because of their response to the pandemic? Now, look, we're working from this assumption that that's going to be the ballot question. It may not be the ballot question, but it's probably going to be the ballot question. The pandemic, the response to the pandemic, the handling of the pandemic. It could be some other issue that comes along out of nowhere and sort of seizes the agenda. That can happen. You think an election is going to be about one thing and something else comes along and it overtakes the original narrative. Faith-based schools, for example, in Ontario, it's happened before. But let's just kind of work from this assumption for now. Let's just assume for now we're voting this fall on how this government, led by this Prime Minister, Mr. Trudeau, how this government handled the pandemic. And that's going to form the basis of how most Canadians vote in the election widely expected coming this fall. An election call probably, I would say, coming after Labor Day. And Election Day, voting day sometime in October. Let's just assume that's going to be the case, okay? Because that's where the good money is right now. That's where the good money is right now. Do the Liberals deserve to be reelected? Given how they've handled the pandemic, performed over the last year and a half. What will be a year and 3/4 by the time the election rolls around. If the election rolls around, but a lot of people think the election is going to roll around. And be prepared to explain your position, okay? At 750-1310, 750-1310, it's the Talk Back Hour. We're going to hit the phones early. Anne in Ottawa, you're on City News. Good morning.
Hi, Rob.
Hi,
you're going to be shocked to hear that no. I don't think they deserve to be reelected.
Why not? Why
and
not?
I will tell you why. Right. Because they have done maybe a great job at barreling money out the door stupidly to people like 15-year-olds, et cetera, people that didn't deserve it, way overpaying people beyond the money they were even losing. It's simply for the bad ordering of the vaccines. Okay. I still do not qualify, even though I'm 66, to get on the system and try to rebook my second shot. And to me, that's appalling. I mean, it's the middle of June, and I still can't. You were asking about that yesterday. I was dying to call. I couldn't get on. It was very busy. But, I mean, to me, that's appalling. Like, we're halfway through the year.
Right.
This is bad. And like, there's only so much you can blame Doug Ford. The reason they didn't allow everybody that got their first vaccine after April 18 is simply because there weren't enough vaccines. And they knew they had to get the hotspots in Toronto done, which I totally get. But, I mean, I'm sitting here, like, twiddling my thumbs, waiting to even beg to get on the portal. But, no, I try. Like, it keeps saying no matter where you go, you can't even book with a pharmacy or anything until you are part of the priority lineup. And I'm not yet. So for that alone, I don't think... That alone, okay. That is not... Well, there's so many other incompetent things they've done.
Okay,
like,
all right.
Did you have a big enough piece of paper for me to write them all down on? Okay, thanks for the rant.
Yeah, no problem. Hope you feel better. Bye-bye. Okay, again, our question for the Talkback Hour: do the Liberals deserve to be reelected given their handling of the pandemic? If we are in, say, the final quarter, or the final period, or the final few innings, or on the back nine in the final few holes, whatever sports analogy you want to use. If the finish line is in sight for the pandemic, and after the pandemic is over, there's the election, do the Liberals deserve to be reelected based on how they managed things through the pandemic? How do you answer that? Barry in Ottawa. Barry, good morning, Barry.
Good morning, Rob.
Morning, Barry. How do you answer that? Do they deserve to be reelected based on their handling of the pandemic?
Not at all.
Not at all. Not at all. Okay. All right. Why not then?
Not in any way, Rob.
Okay.
They've just had too many fiascos and too many scams and too much money given away.
Money. Okay.
Like Ed said, how long a list do you need on a piece of paper? Like, paying off known terrorists for millions of dollars when Sean Crutchett was only going to give Cotter.
Well, I mean, I don't want to go back that far. I mean, let's stick to the last year and a half of the pandemic life, because that's what the election is going to be about.
Well,
okay.
I want to go right back to the start, Rob, because he's just done a miserable and shitty job. All right.
Oh, Barry. My gosh, I just let you out of the penalty box not that long ago. All right, you're flirting with another suspension there if you use language like that. You can't use language like that on the public airwaves, Barry. Get with it. Steve in Westboro. Steve.
What do I think? I think Justin Trudeau...
Does he deserve to be reelected based on his handling of the pandemic, sir?
Yes, I think he will be elected.
Okay, but does he deserve it, though?
Yes, he does.
He does. Okay. All right. Why is that?
Because one number thing he did very good, he got our indigenous people, the native people of our country, to get the first shots in this country, which they deserve after what's been going on for 100 years in this country.
Okay.
He stood up for them.
All right.
They got their shots, which is really great. He gave people money that had no jobs.
Mm-hmm.
He gave them the GST.
The income support programs, the SERB programs.
And he gave seniors money.
Yes, he did.
Gave disability people money. He's helped out a lot of people.
I don't know if there were any top-ups to disability payments, but I'm
No, with the federal there was.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there was. I don't know how true they.
Yes,
Okay,
there was.
all right, okay.
With the federal disability, yes, he gave money to them.
Okay,
So he
all
gave
right.
all these people that were out of work, he
Right.
gave them money to pay their rent and buy food.
Okay, so he took care of the vulnerable, and for that reason,
That's right. He did
okay.
a great job. He did
a great job.
with
Okay.
the indigenous people of our
Yeah,
country.
indigenous. Yes. Okay, Steve. All right. Very, very, very interesting take, sir. Thank you. Regan and Renfrew. Does Justin Trudeau deserve to be reelected based on his handling of the pandemic? How would you answer that question, sir?
No.
No. Why not? Okay.
He didn't do anything more that any other party wouldn't have done.
Okay.
In a lot of ways, he done worse. But I don't think the past should be a ballot box question anyway. It should be, how are you going to pay for it in the future?
Where do we go from here, kind of thing? Okay.
Yeah, how are you going to pay for it, and who are you going to pick for the 5G partner?
Well, I mean, where we're going from here, we know a little bit more about that, don't we? We know we're going to seriously do our best to get to net zero by the year 2050. Climate change, seriously, right? Seriously, they're putting into law. They're trying to get to net zero. Pass a bill in the legislature about that in Parliament. And $10 a day daycare. Now, is it really $10 a day daycare? No, but that's what it'll say on the lawn sign. It'll say $10 a day daycare, right? So,
of course it will.
Yeah.
But I don't think he deserves it any more than any other politician.
Okay, all right.
He was just manager, the in-between, the liaison.
Okay.
But anyway, that's it, Rob.
Okay, thank you. I don't want to take one more. We'll stop early instead, and we'll be able to fit in more calls after the first quarter break. Does Justin Trudeau deserve to be reelected, given how his government has performed during the pandemic for Canadians? This is the Rob Snow Show Talkback Hour. Call in line 750-1310. Engage in the discussion. This is City News.
The food cupboard started about 25 years ago. Again, it was a very small operation in the basement of a church. And we have been expanding to the point where we needed to have a new facility. So in discussion with the city of Ottawa, and Jan Harder, the local representative here, we came to this location, which is about 2,000 square feet, located in the Walter Baker Center. We've been here for about 2 years, and it is much better. It gives us a much broader opportunity to serve our clients better. It's a fairly affluent community in Barrhaven, so you wouldn't think that people would really need to have a food bank or a food cupboard. But people sometimes have a temporary loss of their job, maybe new immigrants or refugees to the community. Maybe there's been an injury in the family or something like a pandemic that causes people to run short of food during their monthly requirements. So we offer any clients who come and live in our catchment area the opportunity to pick up an order of food every 3 or 4 weeks. The need varies from time to time. We have expanded our offering to include quite a few perishables, eggs, milk, cheese, yogurt, vegetables, fruit. But people I think know that we need cans of beans and stuff as well too. One thing that we're consistently short of sometimes is personal hygiene products. You go to the grocery store, you buy your toothpaste and you buy your deodorant and shampoo there. People don't automatically think that to donate those kinds of things to a food cupboard. So we end up buying quite a few of those things from time to time. The pandemic has affected us like it has everybody. Initially, we had to stop the grocery store food donations so that we didn't have any risk of contamination and to have a significant number of volunteer work to be done in our facility. We have a storefront, so it's like a mini grocery store where you take a cart and you go around and pick out the things that you want. That doesn't work during the pandemic to maintain social distancing and so on. So what we have now is our clients can come in one at a time, they make an appointment, they stand behind a line, and they direct our volunteer to, I'd like Kellogg's Corn Flakes rather than Harvest Crunch, to pick the food that they would like off the shelves according to the allocation, depending on the size of their family. And then they take it out, load it into their vehicle or whatever, bring back the cart, we disinfect everything, and prepare for the next client. We are very blessed here in Barrhaven. We're a totally volunteer organization. So if you give a dollar to us, it goes to purchasing food or to provide some service to our clients.
On the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Asking, do the Liberals deserve to be re-elected given how they've handled the pandemic? Up the line, Dave. Good morning, Dave.
How you doing, Rob?
I'm good. Now it just says the Valley. Renfrew. Okay, Renfrew. Okay. So, do they deserve to be reelected? You're in the conservative stronghold there, Dave. How do you? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm a Go-Ahead supporter for sure. I get my fair share of flack for that. But
okay.
To my point, when it doesn't take very long in a discussion with a liberal-minded person to turn the conversation from facts to name-calling, and that seems to be the Liberals' defense mechanism, which really burns me bad.
Okay.
And my reason for hating, I don't know, maybe I can't say on the radio, disliking Mr. Trudeau as much as I do, is the one thing I would really like to see the man do is answer a question. It's to the point where it really insults my intelligence, the way that guy, and Liberals in general, the liberal-minded person in general, conduct themselves, because it seems like the minute you back them into a corner, they just start hurling insults, or you're a racist or whatever. And they can't come back at you with a reasonable conversation without getting angry in their defense.
Okay.
What is with that mentality?
Okay. But you don't think they deserve to be reelected, though?
They shouldn't have been elected in the first place.
But they were. They had twice.
They were.
So,
and you know what? It was in my opinion, it was dirty. He was Liberals are very good at winning elections. They're not good at running the country, but they're very good at winning elections.
All right. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Dave. Thank you. Yeah, you too. Yeah. I mean, we're saying that it's going to be about pandemic response. Maybe it's not about pandemic response. And maybe Canadians will have moved on. Something else will come along, and Mr. Trudeau will be judged on something else. Maybe gas prices are out of control. Inflation isn't this kind of temporary blip that everybody thinks it is. People are mad about the cost of living increases, housing mania. Why do I have to be a millionaire to live in the city? Gosh, you have all kinds of hot social issues right now, right? Lack of any real progress on reconciliation with First Nations, Islamophobia, racism, homophobia, whatever it is. Maybe it's the Quebec question. It's going to be... First of all, this new federal language bill is not going anywhere because there's only a few days left in the parliamentary session, and it's quite likely Parliament will not be back for the rest of the year. So that's just kind of another nod to the Quebecois, because Mr. Trudeau has been working feverishly to shore up the nationalist credentials in Quebec at the expense of the rest of Canada. So there's that. Maybe it's the environment, climate crisis, climate emergency, net zero, Greta, the whole thing. Maybe it's the terrible state of affairs unfolding on a daily basis in the Canadian military. I mean, is there a worse run file in front of the Prime Minister right now than the Canadian Armed Forces? Two Michaels, China file. There's a lot of other things going on. I say it's going to be a pandemic election because none of that other stuff is stuck to the Liberals. Life has been pandemic life. So since that's the case, the election is probably about the pandemic, and on that score, do they deserve to be reelected? Mark in Ottawa South. What do you think, Mark?
They're going to be reelected with a majority, but not because of the pandemic.
Not because of the pandemic. Okay. All right.
The Prime Minister has communicated three things to the people of Quebec in the last couple of months that will enable him to take away seats from the Bloc Québécois to get a majority. He told the people of Quebec that I'm willing to give you everything the Bloc Québécois would give you. The difference is I am going to form a government. They can't. The things he's done is, first, he said, I'm open to the idea of Quebec amending the Constitution unilaterally. I won't oppose it. But no one else in Canada is to be able to do that. Second, he said, I'm not going to oppose Bill 21 and repression of Muslims in Quebec. Don't worry, all that talk last week about how we must fight Islamophobia in the wake of the terror attack in London, none of that's for you. And finally, number 3 is the introduction of that legislation to strengthen the Official Language Act, specifically for promoting and protecting French. That signals to them that you can have it both ways, as usual. You can violate the rights of the official language minority in Quebec, but we will protect the official language minorities outside
of Quebec. Yeah. So you say he's going to win. You're saying the Liberals are going to win, but they're not going to win because of the pandemic. They're going to win because of the way they pander to Quebec.
And, well, he's handed out enough money to buy enough votes in Ontario. So in the pandemic, in that sense, not because people think he did a good job managing it, but because he did a good job giving away money.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. Thank you. Yeah, I love the way he breaks it down and articulates his opinion. Darlene in Nepean. Good morning, Darlene.
Good morning, Rob.
You think Mr. Trudeau deserves to be reelected because of his handling of the pandemic?
No.
No.
And I want to say your last caller and your summary was great.
Okay.
There's a saying that you don't remember people for what they did. You remember them for how they made you feel. Trudeau makes me feel really dirty.
Okay.
Dirty. Stephen Harper was a leader. You just put the two of them side by side, and there's no similarity whatsoever. Stephen Harper followed through in a democratic matter. I was proud to be a Canadian. Trudeau throws money. He doesn't care about anyone. He doesn't care about Indigenous people. He doesn't care about Muslim people. He doesn't care about anyone except himself. And I don't know in his head if he really believes he's a leader, like at the recent G7.
G7, yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't get it out. Sorry.
That's okay.
7, he looks like a tiny copy of what's that singer that always wore black? Johnny
Cash?
Yeah. No, I'm ashamed of him.
Okay.
He's all about China and Quebec. That's it.
Okay. All right, Darlene, thank you. Okay. Take a few more here. Yep. Bell's Corners. Glenn, you're on City News.
How are you today, Rob?
I'm okay. Do you think Mr. Trudeau deserves to be reelected because of how he's handled the pandemic?
No, I certainly don't.
You don't? Okay. All right.
No, and if you
not a lot of love this morning for the poor fellow.
I can't stand the guy.
Okay. All right.
But you and I talked about it after the last election, and I said that he'd work his way towards destroying the country over a number of years, and sure enough, that's exactly what he's done.
Okay.
So there's not one file that he's got operating properly out of that. Not one. Look at the Defense Department. Look at the procurement. Look at nothing. Absolutely nothing. Both my brothers in the States had their shots. They both worked down there.
Yeah.
They both had double shots by the middle of February.
Yes.
And this guy, who knows what he paid for that, to do that publicity stunt back in December to show a few shots. And here we are 6.5 months later, and barely 10% of the country's got one shot.
Yeah, I think it's up to about 13% is double dose now. Yeah,
I got mine last week.
Yeah, okay. All right. Okay.
But, and now I can't, I'm thinking, well, maybe I'll be able to go down and see my brother in the States. No, I can't drive across the border.
No.
Even with double shots.
Yeah.
You know, like it's 15 months now he's had that U.S. border closed. It's insanity.
Okay.
And he's got no plan for bringing the people back. No plan for putting people back to work. Like it's atrocious what's going on.
Well, you know, in fact, the CERB, what is the CERB? Now, the CERB used to be CERB. Now it's CRB, Canada Recovery Benefit. It's still pretty much the same, $2,000 a month before tax.
Taxpayers' money.
Yeah, but it's supposed to expire in July. It'll be interesting to see if that actually expires in July, because he's under a lot of pressure now from Mr. Singh to keep it in place.
Well, of course. Where do they think it's coming from? It's a country of only 36 to 38 million people, and they're running a debt into the trillion.
Well, you know, $1.3 trillion is the overall debt, $400 billion deficit. Plus, yesterday, I talked about this with Professor Lee yesterday. StatsCan, not Rob Snow or Ian Lee, StatsCan says we have 630,000 jobs open right now.
Oh, yeah.
That employers can't even fill right now.
Nope. No, the whole thing, and you talk to the average guy. Well, they think that the government's giving the money. It's the taxpayer that's paying the bill.
Of course. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Glenn. Yep. You call back anytime. 10:28. So we've reached halftime. It's the Rob Snow Show Talk Back Hour, and it's red hot today at 750-1310. News coming up, and then more of your calls here on City News.
One for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, June 16th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, 14 degrees, and here's what's making news this hour. Money to connect LRT platform to the airport terminal. Cash provided in a federal announcement this morning will take $6.4 million of that cost. Work expected to be complete next year. Now, the Fed's also providing Ottawa International with another $5.7 million for its operations. That's out of the Transport Canada Airport Relief Fund. The airport reported it lost just over $51 million last year, mainly due to the devastating effects COVID had on the travel industry. Latest COVID-19 numbers from the province show 384 additional cases today. Those positive results come from around 28,100 tests that were completed. 21 of the cases are from the Ottawa area. We are still waiting for the rest of the provincial figures. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau already out of the hotel phase of his 14-day quarantine period. He was allowed to check out this morning after receiving a negative COVID-19 test. Trudeau was at a 3-star hotel near the airport after he returned to Ottawa last night from his trip to the G7 summit in England and then meetings with European leaders in Belgium. The rest of his 14-day quarantine will be spent at home. City News Time, 10:31. I'm Andrew Boyle. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
We have these latest numbers on COVID right now. Just out. Ontario, 384. But I said to David earlier in the week, and David agreed. I find the provincial case numbers now all but meaningless, David. 384. I mean, it's nice to see it below 400. It'd be nice to see it closer to 200. It'd be nice to see it, as close to zero as we can get it. 21 for Ottawa. What I really want to know is what's the situation in the hospitals? Is that getting worse? Is that getting better? And it's about the same. There are still in Ottawa area hospitals today, 13 people are in the hospital and 5 people are in ICU. I think now, given where we are with vaccinations, and the fact that we're only, the number of tests that we're doing on any given day now are way down to 28,000 tests. I just think where we are with tests and vaccinations, I think it's important to really focus on the situation in the hospitals. That's my own opinion. And that's holding steady at about a dozen. 13 in the hospital and 5 in ICU. That's the latest that we have on COVID data for today. Now we're talking about the election because hopefully we're in the final stages of this pandemic, but I really think there's going to be an election in the fall. Okay? So mid-September, the election is called. We have the campaign. I wonder what that's going to look like. 2 Trudeau campaign planes and Trudeau in a canoe. I don't know if he's going to be able to do that. We'll see. But I really do think that we'll be voting in October. That's where I'm going right now. Now, I also thought there'd be an election in the spring, but nevertheless, think about what's working for the Liberals and what's working against the Liberals. You have the vaccination program, obviously top of mind right now. And I think on the vaccine program, whether you believe them or not, whether it works or not, I'm going to tell you right now, this is going to be the line that you're going to get from Team Trudeau. Promise made, promise kept on vaccines. Mr. Trudeau is going to say, what did I tell you, Canada? Any Canadian that wants to be vaccinated can be vaccinated by September. That's what he said, right? And he's going to remind everybody of that. And if there's a knock against him, it'll be that he under-promised so he could over-deliver. But, the way things are going, and yeah, this is me giving them a little bit of credit. I don't do that, right? Very, very often. A little tiny bit of credit. The way things are going now, the only people who aren't going to be vaccinated by September are the loony anti-vaxxers. People who just don't want a shot. And the slow rollout, the tight supply, the constant confusing messaging, all of it could very well be water under the bridge by the time Canadians are marking their ballots. I gave you my word. This is what Mr. Trudeau's going to say. I gave you my word. You would be vaccinated by September, and now you are, so vote for me. You would have to think, that makes him a sure thing in the election. Promise made, promise kept, mission accomplished. Put him on an aircraft carrier in the middle of the Rideau Canal with a big banner that says mission accomplished. Oh, come on. You'd love to see it. To Shawville, Keith, good morning.
How are you?
I'm good, Keith. Does he deserve to be reelected because of how he handled the pandemic?
No, he does not.
He does not. Okay, all right.
I have to commend your previous caller, Mark, there.
Yeah.
He had everything down to a T.
On Quebec, yeah.
And I was just reading on the French official, like they're making New Brunswick officially bilingual.
Well, New Brunswick's always been officially bilingual, yeah.
But they're just entrenching that. And also with the Supreme Court justices, now they have to be bilingual if they don't need a translator. How are you going to get a good quality Supreme Court?
Yeah, plus it's kind of ridiculous. I mean, how much do they spend on translation, do you think, at the Supreme Court of Canada, translating all the hearings and translating every single document that comes out of the Supreme Court of Canada?
They've been doing that quite well
of course.
in the past few years, but how are you going to, that's going to limit the number of quality judges from, well, even Ontario to choose from, and it's just incredible. He's bought, I'm just so disgusted. I'm disappointed.
So you're thinking if he gets reelected, it'll be because he bought it.
Oh,
he bought Quebec.
He bought it big time.
Bought it big time. Okay.
With our money.
All right.
With our own money.
Okay. Fair enough, Keith. Thank you. Let's take another one here. Joanne in Orleans. Good morning, Joanne. Does he deserve to be reelected based on his handling of the pandemic?
Yes and no.
Yes and no. Okay.
Yeah, because he does not, as far as the effect on the country, and all your previous callers, I don't think there's one I disagreed with. Everyone raised a really good point. Why he does is because his Machiavellian ways have been so impressive that there should be an award for that. He has used COVID as a cover for his machinations all along.
COVID as a cover. I'm going to write that down. COVID as a cover.
Nice to know I'm quotable.
COVID as a cover. Okay. Yeah.
No budget for how long? And he tried to sneak in.
2 years, no budget.
And the fact that he tried to sneak in a seal, a point of time where he wouldn't have to have a budget, right?
That's right. Yeah.
That was all deliberate. That wasn't just, he wasn't a victim of circumstance.
Yeah.
He was doing a power play. His whole Build Back Better mantra, whatever iteration it takes, these are the kinds of things that he is trying to do, including buying the votes in Quebec, like your previous caller said, all that under the cover of COVID. But I will say this, if the election question is whether Trudeau handled the pandemic properly, then O'Toole will have failed. The country is desperate for a vision. We are looking for a leader and a map for the future. And O'Toole and the Conservatives don't have to solve everything, but they certainly have to address the economy. And there are some hopeful signs. The Ring of Fire, agriculture, oil and gas, and how they'll be on the world stage, bringing back manufacturing. How about some housing help for first-time homeowners? Like, we can have, people are looking for an alternative. I don't think even Liberals are that fond of Trudeau in many respects, the way he's trampled on rights and the hubris that he displays and the hypocrisy. But if you don't have an alternative, what are you going to do?
Okay.
So move over, Liberals. Canada's going to move on if O'Toole can present a vision.
Okay. Thank you, Joanne. Thank you. Yep. Okay. Some people have mentioned, the money spent, and he actually, when the public opinion researchers do their thing, the pollsters, he gets high marks for those income programs, the support programs, to keep the economy from tanking. I mean, I think back to those, we aired almost, I don't know how many of those Trudeau news conferences every day. The 11:30, the Rob Snow Show became the Justin Trudeau Show, right? During the depths of the pandemic, one day I counted there were 17 different government programs, government income support programs. The biggies, CERB and wage subsidy. So come election time, I think it writes itself. What's the slogan going to be? I had your back. I had your back. Like Steve in Westboro said, I had your back. You were out of work. You needed money. I had $2,000 for you. Our government came along with $2,000 for you when you really needed $2,000. Okay? And did I mention that I had your back? And all the opposition did, the opposition, those mean and nasty and heartless and cruel conservatives, all they did was criticize me for trying to have your back. If they were running the show, Pierre Poilievre would have had you destitute and living on the street in a cardboard box. I had your back. Vote for me. Vote Liberal. I mean, it writes itself. Okay. You needed $2,000. We gave you $2,000. Even if you didn't need $2,000, we gave you $2,000. You didn't need $2,000. You're 15 years old and you live in a 3,000 square foot house in the suburbs. But here's $2,000 anyway. You remember that, David? Holy cow.
Still makes me mad.
Like 15-year-olds. I mean, if I was 15 and the government gave me $2,000 a month, I would vote for that person for the rest of my life.
Forever.
Forever.
Yeah, forever.
I'm a liberal forever now. You can count on me, but you had my back.
Universal sneakers and video
David,
games.
I haven't been 15 in a long, long time, okay?
Yeah.
But I can tell you, I did work all summer when I was that age. I never made $2,000 in a summer.
Not once.
No, not once. Let alone $2,000 a month. Holy smokes. Steve in Ottawa. Steve. Good morning, Steve. You're on City News. Steve.
Good morning, Rob. How are you?
Good, good. Do you think Trudeau deserves to be reelected because of how he handled the pandemic?
Not a chance.
Not a chance. Okay, let me put you down there. One more. Okay.
I don't think a lot of the things should have closed in the first place, but, you know.
Okay, yeah. Well, they did, and some of them still are, so.
You know, the Fauci emails came out, and you see, like, the death numbers weren't that bad, and we didn't really need masks in the first place, and all this other stuff. But that's all hindsight now.
Yeah. Okay.
Basically, what I want to say is that he's going to win again.
He's going to win.
And it's because of the media. Because,
the media.
You know, the leftist ideology in this country where the, you know, liberals can do no wrong. The conservatives are evil. They want to, you know, support abortion and everything else. It's a bunch of crap. And, you know, just the people eat it up every election time, you know. Trudeau came out dancing around in blackface and calling everyone else racist, and it doesn't seem to matter. It's just, you know, Teflon. Like, the media gives them a pass every time they talk to them. They never give them any hard questions. You never have to answer any questions. So, you know, we're never going to have a fair election again.
Okay. He's all right.
The CBC is suing the conservatives while giving him a pass. It's unbelievable. Like, anyway, they're supposed to, you know, what are you going to do? You're sue the CBC, or are you going to elect somebody or push a party that's going to cut your jobs? You know, it doesn't make any sense. Anyway.
All right, Steve. Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Yeah, and you have said it. He's good. If he wins, it's not going to be because he did a good job managing the pandemic, but it's going to be because of the liberal bias in the media. It took 44 minutes to get to that, but I knew it would come up. Let's take one more here before the final quarter. Chris Almont. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Rob.
Trudeau deserved to be reelected for his management of the pandemic?
No.
Oh, okay.
As a matter of fact, when
I predict here, given the outcome of the talkback hour here, massive conservative majority in the
Yeah, understood. But, you know, when the pandemic is over, we'll have the time to really seriously reflect on what he did during the pandemic. And also, you know, what he's done for us since.
Yeah.
Yeah, he gives out money and everything, but that's, you know, my grandchildren's grandchildren will be paying for that one. And the economy, I mean, inflation's gone up in the States.
Yes. Well, we had the inflation number out here today, too. So
yeah,
3.6%. Yeah.
And, you know, almost our entire budget will go to paying the interest on the debt soon. And, you know, all the other projects, the stuff that he promised and everything, it's stuff that's down the road that we may not be able to afford.
Okay.
So I think once people wake up from the pandemic and start hearing that things are under control, I think they reflect on what's happened and what he did.
Okay. All right, Chris, thank you. Thank you for your analysis. So when we come back, first time all morning, we have some phone lines available there for you. Been a very hot hour here. We're talking about pandemic politics on a Wednesday morning and Justin Trudeau's re-election fortunes. Give me yours during the Talkback Hour, 750-1310 Rob Snow Show on City News.
It started out with a small outdoor booth in what was called Artist Alley, which is actually the area just outside our store on William Street, where for a couple of years we sold our jewelry directly on the street. And then we slowly evolved to having an indoor location in this building, 55 Barwood Market Square. We then moved to another location in Place de Ville, and then moved back down here on Dalhousie Street at Irrigere in the 90s, and then back into this building again in 2000 as a collection. I do a collection of jewelry called Cirque that's mainly beaded work with a combination of semi-precious and vintage beads. And then she does a hat collection called Fanfreluche that's all cut and sewn hats in a variety of fabrics and for all of the seasons of the year. We've curated and sourced the artisans that we represent in a lot of different ways over the years since it's been, since 1985. Some people come to us since we're known, and other artisans that we represent might recommend that they come and see us. Some people we find at craft shows, or we see their work, somebody wears it in, and we go and track it down and bring it. And then some people, interestingly, are with us in one medium, and then sometimes they evolve to another. They're all Canadian and mainly local. With the roughly 50 people that we have, I'd say more than half of those are Ottawa-Gatineau, and then the rest are from other cities in Canada, Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver, etc. If you can afford it, go to a small business and spend some money. It's lovely when you come in and, give me a pep talk and tell me how much you love this place and you've been coming here for years. But if you can afford it, please spend some money too, because all the pep talks in the world are not going to pay my rent, which is still full rent even when we're closed. Then secondly, if you can't afford to spend money, follow the businesses that you want to support on social media. Go to their Instagram, go to their Facebook, follow their Twitter, and then retweet, share their Facebook page, like and comment, because if you can't afford to, as many of us can't right now, to do extra expenditures, doing all of those little things like that will raise the visibility of those small businesses, and hopefully for them result in some online or curbside or other business for them.
On the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Do the Trudeau Liberals deserve to be reelected because of the management of the pandemic? Okay. I'm talking about what's been working for the Liberals a little bit. Vaccine rollout, $2,000 CERB checks. Economy appears to be on the mend. Some sectors like housing doing quite well. Okay. Maybe that's enough, okay? You would think the election would be a cakewalk for the Liberals right now. That it shouldn't be a question of whether they're going to win, just a question of how big the win will be. Maybe a Mulroney-like majority, okay? What's working against them? Mostly, in my own opinion, it's the unknown. But Mr. Trudeau has the great advantage in that he's the prime minister, so he controls the timing of the election. It's the great advantage of incumbency. But remember, Winston Churchill lost, right? Won the war and then lost the election. Anything could happen. What we call black swan events, right? There could be another wave, another variant, another lockdown. Could be some kind of economic shock. What if a judge in Michigan says, sorry, Canada, we're closing Line 5. We agree with Governor Whitmer. You have to close Line 5, and gas isn't $1.30 a liter, it's $2.30 a liter. There could be some sort, they're liberals. There could be some sort of ethical lapse with this government, don't you think? Don't look so shocked, David. We have Jody Wilson-Raybould's tell-all book coming out in October. That's going to be a conversation maker during the election campaign. And look, there's a risk, and this is what Karl Belanger has impressed upon us so many times, and we would be wise to listen to his advice. He was one of the architects of the Orange Wave. People move on. What have you done for me lately? People get on with their lives. Okay, yeah, pandemic. That's so 2020. It's on to other things. The fog of war will lift. And people will start to seriously look at some of the decisions that were made, big deficits, trillion-dollar debts, and all of those unsettled issues. Take your pick of those. First Nations issues, Crown Indigenous relations, national unity, Quebec. They've come up already. The armed forces is in crisis right now. And look at geopolitics right now. Who is even leading the armed forces right now? But you know, the Achilles heel of the Liberals is, and always has been and always will be, arrogance. They're arrogant. There's the risk they take the campaign for granted because they have this view of themselves that you're a backward person if you don't vote Liberal. We're the Liberals. This is Canada. There must be something wrong with you if you won't vote for us. Liberals running Canada's the natural order of things. And maybe that comes back to bite them. But again, no signs of that right now. Yeah, you might have to give it another 4 years, which for my perch right now is the odds-on favorite of happening. But what do you think? Do they deserve to be reelected? What do you think? Ivan in Ottawa. Ivan.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good, Ivan. Thank you.
You guys are doing a great job.
Well, I
great
thank
show.
you, sir.
Love it.
Thank you, sir. Do they deserve to be reelected because of how they've handled the
Hey, look, who do you vote for? The only person, like you said, that had a chance and people would have voted was Pierre. Okay, Pierre.
Poilievre, you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Yeah.
At the end of the day, people are looking at O'Toole. O'Toole, nothing personal. You're a nice guy, but you're too nice. You ain't going to do the job. At the end of the day, Liberals are going to come in no matter what.
Okay.
They're hypocrites. Most politicians are hypocrites. They pat themselves on the back. They say, "Look what I did for you. You took my money and you gave it back to me." Then
I had your back, sir. We had your back.
Yeah. I heard that. I don't want your I don't want your hand on my back. Okay. I've been there, done it.
Okay.
I heard this 1,001 times. Your Trudeau is going to come in no matter what. It's politically set. This is the guy who says, "Don't go to your cottages." People forget this. Then the first thing he does, gets in his fancy little car and goes to a cottage, crosses the bridge. It's okay for me, but not for you guys.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, you're absolutely right. We can debate this, like you said, but Liberals will come in because it's just the way it is.
It's the natural order of things, sir.
And I think Canadians are at sleep. How about everybody not voting at all when it comes to voting? Just to show politicians.
No, we shouldn't do that. Don't advocate for that. Don't advocate for that. Okay, all right.
Well,
okay, all right.
Anyways, thanks a lot.
All right, no problem, Ive. Good to hear. Good to hear. Greg in Orleans. Greg.
Hey.
Hey.
I'm just kind of processing what Ivan said. I love it. So I agree with him in the fact that who else are you going to pick? I don't know if Pierre would have done it. I'd say that Aaron is certainly trying to do something, trying to, get those votes out of other areas of the country, trying to, paint the Conservatives as a little bit more friendly than the extreme right might want them to be.
Yeah.
But I don't see there's like a leadership void right now in Canada. I don't. Your question was, does Justin deserve another chance? I don't think so.
Okay.
And I voted for him last time.
Oh, you did?
So,
okay.
Hey, my vote's up for grabs, but I don't know what I'll do if they do the vote. I think you're right in the fact that people have short memories, and everybody just wants to put this last year behind them so fast and just think about something better. I think the big risk will be this weird period we're entering, which is when we could start to open things up and the government support start drying up and do new jobs and that start coming back at the same time? Or are we going to see government supports dry up, jobless increase as companies realize they can't recover?
Okay.
Right? We're in a really weird kind of transition, and I think that if there's any risk to the Liberals, it's that. Or, God forbid, we end up with another crazy variant that shuts everything
Yeah,
down.
well, that's another thing. Yeah. Thank you, Greg. Thank you. Okay, we'll take another one here. Might be able to fit two more in here. Roy in Canada. Roy.
Yeah, good morning.
Yeah, hi, Roy. Thank you. Based on how they handled the pandemic, do the Liberals deserve another shot at governing?
Absolutely not. What the heck are we doing as Canadians? Do we not have a memory? There's three parties. Just because one doesn't do it right, the other one doesn't do it right, why don't we try one time?
Okay.
NDP. Why don't we give those guys a shot? They listen to us as people.
Yeah.
They have feelings for the Indigenous community, and their leader, he seems to be forthright. He's always available. Now, that's a guy I wouldn't mind to give a try.
Okay.
This Trudeau guy, where is he?
Where is he?
I'm here, I'm there, I'm anywhere. The guy never has had to work really hard his whole entire life. Really. Let him go to the curb.
All right.
Kick him to the curb.
Kick him to the curb. Okay. Kick him to the curb. Vote NDP. Vote NDP. Okay. You don't hear a lot of that during the Talkback Hour on this show, but there you go. Last call from the Talkback Hour is Carlton Place. William. Good morning, William.
Hey, good morning. How are you doing?
I'm good, sir. Thank you. What do you think? 4 more years of Trudeau. Does he deserve it on how he's handled the pandemic?
Definitely not. I think us Canadians, we all need to wake up and see what's going on. You know, I heard one of your callers mention, you should definitely all vote for him if you got your $2,000. You should, but if you really look into it, the currency is being devalued. They're printing money like crazy. It's a new way of paying bills, which we all as Canadians should not accept because it hurts us all, every single one of us. When we go to the stores, when we get gas, everything's going to go up in price, and that money comes at a cost. So I think that
William, inflation, there's nothing to worry about, okay? As long as you don't own a house, as long as you don't drive a car, and as long as you don't eat food, you don't have to worry about inflation. Right? You don't have to worry about inflation, William. Thank you. Okay, good stuff. Thank you for all your calls. Bruce McIntyre after the 11 o'clock news. Mark Goudie as well in the next half hour of the program with Red Blacks coming back to TD Place later in the summer. This is City News.
Number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, June 16th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, 14 degrees, and here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Federal government is giving some cash to the Ottawa airport to complete the LRT station scheduled to open next year. The airport receiving $5.7 million from Transport Canada as well, on top of that money from the Airport Relief Fund. The airport reported its net loss last year due to the pandemic-related travel restrictions was over $51 million. Now, the federal government says it is confident the airline industry and airports in Canada will be prepared to start accepting travelers again as the borders begin to reopen to non-essential travel. Here's City News Parliament Hill reporter Cormac McSweeney.
Details of the federal border reopening plan are going to be announced before the current restrictions expire on Monday. And Federal Transport Minister Omar Alghabra says the government has been in contact with airlines and airports about the plan.
And we feel confident that our partnership with them and their dedicated and committed workers and teams will be ready to work with us on the phasing of reopening our travel.
Minister Alghabra did not give additional details of the plan, but says the government will make sure airports have the screening and testing resources needed to deal with an increase in travelers. Currently, only 4 airports in the country are accepting international flights, but Alghabra says as that expands, those other airports will be ready to go as well. The feds have already indicated hotel quarantines and full quarantines will be scrapped for fully vaccinated travelers, and people will likely need a digital vaccine passport to visit another country. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
City News Time, 11:03. Now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Lots of sunshine for us today and tomorrow, and then the wet weather returns Friday. The high today, 22. It is on the cool side, a gusty northwest wind. Tonight, partly cloudy at 9, and tomorrow, sunshine, warmer, 26. For today, the high, 22.
And right now in Ottawa and Smiths Falls, 14 degrees. Latest COVID-19 numbers from the province show 384 new cases today. Positive results coming from about 28,100 tests that were completed. Now, 21 of these new cases are in Ottawa. Province says there are 2 more cases in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, but that is a data catch-up according to that health unit. There is 1 more case in Eastern Ontario's health unit, 3 more today in Renfrew. The province is also reporting another 12 deaths from COVID-19. The highly infectious Delta variant is on track to become the dominant strain of this virus in Ontario. That has led to anxiety and a rush for second doses. However, there is hope the vaccines offer more protection against the variant than previously thought. Dr. Donald Vinh is with the McGill University Health Center Research Institute. He tells the Rob Snow Show while the COVID-19 variants are concerning, he says they shouldn't cause people any extra anxiety.
The data that's coming out of the UK tells us a very clear plan of how to get this under control, which is to fully vaccinate everybody. And that's actually achievable and feasible, right? So if that's the case, then I'm not anxious. I just have to make sure that people do their part and get vaccinated.
Now, Dr. Vinh says he doesn't expect this will be the last COVID-19 variant and recommends everyone get vaccinated just as soon as they can. Consumer Price Index went up 3.6% in May compared to a year ago. It cost you that much more to live May this year compared to May last year. StatsCan says the largest yearly increase since May 2011 is partially the result of the agency comparing prices to low levels seen at the beginning of this pandemic. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's a pillar of community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
Heave-hi-ho, the best man in Ottawa was Mufferaw Joe. Mufferaw Joe. Big Joe Mufferaw paddled into Mattawa all the way from Ottawa in just one day. Hey, hey, on the River Ottawa, the best man we ever saw was Big Joe Mufferaw, the old folks say. Come and listen and I'll tell you what the old folks say. And he say Big Joe had an old pet frog, bigger than a horse, and he barked like a dog. And the only thing quicker than a train upon a track was Big Joe riding on the bullfrog's back. Heave-hi-ho, the best man in Ottawa was Mufferaw Joe. Mufferaw Joe. And he say...
All right. right, let's get into it. Bruce McIntyre's here with Valley View. He's with the Eganville Leader. Sometimes does work for us, too, as well. Ottawa.citynews.ca. Good morning, Bruce McIntyre.
Good morning, Rob, on a chilly but sunny Wednesday morning to you.
Well, you know what? This is perfect timing for this news story, just given the below-average temperatures for Ottawa and the Valley today, June 16th. Congratulations to Eganville.
Wow, what a moment.
On getting Eganville, ladies and gentlemen, Eganville is getting natural gas. Natural gas is coming to Eganville. Holy smokes.
Get those drums rolling. It's a big day in Eganville.
It's front page news, man.
It is. What it is, if you ever go through Eganville or a lot of the communities up and down the valley, you'll see giant white propane tanks sitting outside the home.
Yeah, sure.
And they'll soon be replaced. There's going to be about over 600 homes in Eganville will have natural gas hooked up. And it's come through a provincial program. And once again, our local MPP and Minister of Natural Resources, John Yakovlevsky, was more than pleased to make that announcement.
I bet.
And it'll be like electricity coming to the turn of the century. It's going to be something new and exciting, and hopefully it'll be cheaper for the end. It's cheaper for the ratepayers. So, I mean, natural gas is one of the cheapest you could get. So we're very excited about that.
So it's going in phases, right?
Yes, this will be phase. Phase 2 is they're allocated about $234 million, and looking at supporting about 8,700 connections, not just here, but throughout the Eastern Ontario. But I mean, the savings itself, Robert, are amazing. You can save between $250 and almost $1,500 a year. And
sure.
The last 2 years ago, there was a propane shortage, and there was a big scramble around here. People were it was life or death. Honestly, it was life or death. Wouldn't get propane through the home. So this is one more resource that the people of Eganville can look forward to. And it's well past its time. And I remember this happened in Beachburg about 10 years ago. And boy, when the natural gas connections went up, you saw houses popping up. Out of the blue, these little suburbs are going up. So
suddenly it will spur development if you have a natural gas hookup, right? Yeah.
That's one of the natural spin-offs. Yeah, that's really good news for them. So congratulations to Eganville.
Isn't that something? Yeah.
Front page.
Well, I was just thinking, now that you mention it, I was thinking, I wonder what the biggest propane supplier would be for Eganville and the surrounding area. If it would be Stinson or somebody like that?
Stinson, Superior. A lot of Superior labels on the white propane tanks.
Yeah.
I know myself, I take mine to Canadian Tire for my barbecue. They do my needs.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Eganville gets hooked up to natural gas, 674 homes. Front page of the Eganville Leader, which has been independently owned since 1902. Bruce started there as an intern in 1903.
Yeah,
it is Renfrew County's largest paid circulation newspaper, and it's out weekly. It's out today, and it's $2. Okay,
$2.
That includes the tax.
You don't get that very often.
So, front page of the newspaper today is a story by your boss, Gerald Tracy, and the headline is "The Dean of Law is Dead."
Yeah,
it's an obituary. So, what is it?
Well, Alan Huckabone passed away. For those in your listening audience in Ottawa, they may not be familiar with the name Huckabone, but around here, he is the Dean of Law. He was living at Miramichi Lodge, a long-term care home, and passed away. And he wasn't recognized just for his legal mind. His mind was just as sharp as it was, 80 years ago. It's just he did so much in the community. Not only was he a lawyer, he took so many cases on pro bono quietly. You wouldn't know about this, but if a person went in and they were really getting screwed over, for lack of a better word, he would take the case and not charge them. And that's just the kind of man he was. Very, very good, sharp with humor, and generous to the bone. Quite often, again, anonymously. And one of the stories, Gerald put in 3 pages for Mr. Huckabone today. 1, 2, 3 about his life, because he meant that much to the area. I think I met him once. I'm actually, there's his son I know, Mark. He's also a lawyer. The best dressed lawyer in Renfrew County, his son Mark is.
Okay.
I see him all the time at the courthouse. When I was in the court, I said, "Mark, good looking suit." Well, thank you very much. Thank you. So,
yeah.
But he was out one day with Fred Blackstein. Fred is also, he's Mr. Volunteer. Everyone has a nickname in Renfrew County. Fred is Mr. Volunteer. Anyway, Fred was in charge of fundraising for the Algonquin College, the new campus up at Pembroke. And he was out one day with Alan. Alan said, "How's the donations going?" Fred said, "Well, they're trickling in, a little bit of this, a little bit of that." He said, "Would 500 help you?" And Fred said, sure, if I'm under help. He goes, okay, well, no problem. He meant $500,000. And that really put the college, when that donation was made, boom, you saw a donation just rolling in after that. And Pembroke is home to one of the most beautiful satellite colleges in all of Ontario. And that really itself, that college just spurred so much economic development around the waterfront. And that's all because of Mr. Huckabone and the other fundraisers as well. And he was respected along party lines. It didn't matter whether you were Tory, Liberal, Green. He was well respected in the law community, and just a big loss for the community, Mr. Huckabone. And we wish you well. And I'm sure there are hundreds of people in the Ottawa Valley, past and present, who can thank him for his legal work.
It's a great tribute, as you say, 3 pages in the Eganville Leader this week to Alan Huckabone, and. The obituary notes that he was feted at the Chateau Laurier, and most of the Supreme Court justices were there. They came to celebrate his career. So that tells you about his standing in the legal community. So, that's as you say, there are quite a few sort of high-profile lives honored in the Eganville Leader this week. Another is a retired member of the OPP.
Aubrey Allen.
Yes.
He's also, a little note, Rob, he is also a honorary constable in the state of Kentucky.
Oh, really? Okay.
From our OP, there's a picture of him and Doug Abbott from 1979. They arrested 2 fugitives that made their way from Kentucky up to Canada, and these 2 gentlemen arrested them in their OPP outside of Killaloe. They were sort of a modern-day Bonnie and Clyde. And so once they were arrested and sent back to Kentucky, they opened up the mail a week later, about a month later, and there were 2 certificates making them honorary constables for Boone County, Kentucky, for their role in nabbing Bonnie and Clyde of the 20th century. So, and Aubrey was a cop's cop, that's what he was known as. And his first posting was Killaloe. He stayed there for 30 years. Very rare for an OPP officer to spend their entire career in one, especially a rural.
Well, you would think it'd be, I'll do my time in, first of all, north of 60, and then I'll get transferred to a place like Killaloe, but eventually I'll end up in Ottawa or someplace.
Yeah, Ottawa,
right?
Falls or something, yeah. He will be missed, and a good man he was. And we also, unfortunately, lost Doug Wall. He was Mr. Wheels of the Valley.
Mr. Wheels of the Valley, okay.
He helped start and organize car shows and the vintage car shows. And when he passed away, all the enthusiasts in the valley got their cars together for a parade to roll by his house, and his widow was there. And nice tribute to Doug. And it's car shows hopefully make a comeback this summer in the valley, because they're very popular up here. You will get hundreds of people out. They travel around in groups, so he'll be missed as well. And unfortunately, lastly, close to home for me is Ray Albert here in Renfrew, Papa Ray. And he was known for his fish and chips. We didn't call him Mr. Fish and Chips, but he had a little takeout window. And just a great man, and great food, great prices. $10.95 was a Friday special. 2 pieces of fish and fries. And I couldn't finish it. Such a big meal. So he'll be missed as well.
Okay. When we've talked to Dr. Cushman, the medical officer of health for your health unit, over the last week, I mean, the theme that comes across with COVID for the Valley is supply. Not enough. He sounds very frustrated, Bruce. I don't know about you. Dr. Cushman sounds frustrated that they're just not getting the doses that they need up there.
I don't think people are just waiting on the edge of their toes, just waiting to get that supply in. I think Dr. Cushman says, boy, retirement looks good. But yeah, he's right. But ironically, Rob, you mentioned that yesterday, this past week, the town of Renfrew, administered 10,000 vaccines. So we had 10,000 vaccines go through the town of Renfrew. But as you say, we are waiting, and it is frustrating. Our numbers have gone down dramatically over the last few weeks. We only had 1 case today. I think we went 3 days in a row without any cases being reported. And you see things opening up in Pembroke. The hospital is now allowing 1 visitor per day. So things are slowly returning to normal. But again, we're waiting, and it's just that dose. We have a bunch of arms with waiting for those needles. All we can do is wait. They are organized. They're ready to go. Just have to get the supply in.
Yeah. So what's your sense there in the Frew about the mood of the community right now, Bruce, with things getting back?
Last Friday, I forgot. I forgot that it was opening day.
Yeah, okay. All right. You're on top of it. Top-notch reporter Bruce McIntyre.
Thank you very much. I thought, what is with the traffic? It took me 15 minutes to get from the highway to my home. It takes usually 4. The traffic was packed last Friday. It was like You ever seen the movie The Purge? That's what I felt like I was in. People were going crazy. It was like the balloons were out and people were joyous. There was everything, almost dancing in the streets. And I said, I guess they opened up today.
Yeah.
And it's been that way all week. People are out happy, smiling, laughing. But again, the ones that want their second shots, they're still waiting. And anticipation is the word, I guess. But things are going very well. All our local downtown bars have their patios out. And so people are enjoying it. I've seen the patios are packed since they opened up last Friday.
Yeah. Okay. So. Hey, look, thank you so much for the update from Up the Line this week. It's always great to have you on,
Thank you,
Bruce. Thanks.
Thank you, Rob.
Yeah.
And to all listeners out there, enjoy the beautiful weekend coming up, and happy Father's Day to fellow fathers.
Well said. That's Bruce McIntyre from the Eganville Leader. That's Valley View. When we come back, Red Blacks. We'll be back at TD Place later this summer. Mark Goudie is the president of OSEG. We'll talk to him coming up here on City News.
Well, we all loved our rock T-shirts growing up, right? It was our badge. Hey, we went to this concert. We knew that band inside out. So we kept doing that and kept promoting that. What's sort of happening now is that audience is dying. I always say the earth is flat. So the 60s rockers are falling off the end of the earth. So you don't see as big a sales anymore because my audience is disappearing. What's sort of helping to promote that history is the kids are buying vinyl. And luckily we have a vinyl shop in the neighborhood here, Record Center. So what's happening is I've seen kids come in with their dad. And the dad saying, hey, do you have any Beatles shirts? Do you have any CBGB? Do you have any of this? I said, well, why? He said, well, because my daughter's into it. She's wearing my T-shirt. So slowly it's coming back, right? The kids are, I think, getting fed up with the generic music that's out there. And they want to click into something that, first of all, links them to their parents, something that they thoroughly enjoy now, and maybe they're passing it on to their grandkids. Pandemic has been a couple of things, definitely hard on everybody. So much messaging that's out there that people don't understand, stats that every day, Jesus Murphy, like I'm getting a headache just reading this stuff, right? So really it was just trying to understand where we were going to go from there. The city of Ottawa all of a sudden said, everybody's got to wear a mask. You got to wear it on the bus. People were scrambling, okay? And I had, the store next door had really big windows, so I just flooded the window with masks. Well, that was the activity that saved the business. People were coming in buying 2, 3, 4 masks at a time at $20 a pop here. Okay? But my masks were so different. They were the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, Queen, all the pop culture. Everything else out there was medical masks. And right, so people said, I don't want to do that. I want to show my rock and roll. So it became the new T-shirt as far as I'm concerned. Well, what I've done, I'm Hindenburg. I'm now at 1114A Wellington Street, which is next door to the Fab Gear store. And the reason I've changed names, I've rebranded the store, is because I was planning on retiring. And in December, I'm going, I'm not going to retire. But I've committed to changing what the store's about. So I came up with a new name, Fab Gear's Rock Shop, where legends are dressed. And essentially get that message out. I prefer, if the shirt don't fit, you come in, you try another one on. People like to feel the fabrics with clothing. It's amazing. You'll come in and go, oh, I love that. Oh, can I try this? So that's the big difference. I'm not out to make a gazillion dollars. I stick the way I am, old school. I take cash, we take cards. Come on in and talk to the owner.
Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Canadian Football League has now unveiled its 14-game regular season schedule. Did that yesterday, just one day after the Board of Governors voted to resume play beginning on the 5th of August. Of course, the league didn't play all of last year because of COVID-19. Now, as for the Ottawa Red Blacks, our Ottawa Red Blacks, they will be in Edmonton to face the newly named Edmonton Elks, and that is August 7th. So I'm very excited about this news. Mark Goudie is here. He is the president of OSEG. Good morning.
Rob, thank you for having me.
Well, it's great to hear from you, Mr. Goudie. gosh, you must be pleased, happy, thrilled with this news.
Whole bunch of things. It's been a long time coming. It's been a long 18 months since we played our last game. So happy to have a date to shoot for an opening day at TD Place.
Yeah. So what do you think has tipped it in your favor here, that football will be back?
Well, I think it had to be back, right? I don't think, as a league, we could afford to be out of the public consciousness for another year. And, we could spend half an hour on how difficult football is just logistically and without fans, how difficult it is. But, we needed to get back. So, I think we have things a little easier than some other clubs, and that we have, a couple of owners and can make a decision on things really quick and understood the importance of getting back and playing. Some other teams have, community ownership and consortiums that they need to deal with. But, I think they got to a point on Monday where all teams, even with imperfect information in terms of how many fans will be allowed or not allowed back into stadiums when we get there, that it was critical for us to get back to playing. And, we needed to do that. So I was really happy that, everybody was on the same page and unanimously agreed that we're gonna push forward and have a season and award a 108th Grey Cup.
Yep. What has to happen between now and then? So what I'm sure you've done a lot of preparations already because you've had to make the pitch to government officials repeatedly. It's safe. We think we can have a football game safely. So what do you have to do to start executing on that plan between now and then?
Yeah, there's kind of two paths. There's the logistical path that we need to do, right? We need to, on a typical Red Blacks game day, we can have 800 part-time employees working that event, right? So we, haven't seen those 800 employees in the last couple of years, and they turn over. So logistically, we got to get back to, being able to host a major event 7 times, hopefully 8 with a playoff game this season. So there's all the work that goes into that, and understanding what restriction protocols need to be in place. Path 2 is, I think, working with the provincial government as well and the health authorities of the provincial government to be able to get to how many fans is TD Place or Ontario teams going to be able to have in the building to start, and what's the the likely progression of that as we go through the season. We know some of our brethren out west will probably start with no capacity restrictions right out of the gates. I'm not sure that will be Ontario, but I got an update yesterday, and it seems by the end of August when we play our first game, Ottawa's expecting that 85, maybe 90% of people will have their first vaccinations, and somewhere around 70% of our population over 12 will have second vaccinations. So as well as we're doing up to today, it's going to improve a whole bunch more in the next 8 weeks. So I think all that gets factored in. So we continue with our dialogue. We don't need an answer right now, and I'd rather a more positive answer a little bit farther down the road than a more restricted one now. So those are the two kind of paths route that we're going down.
Okay. So you mentioned it usually takes about 800 people to stage a football game.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So are you hiring?
We are.
You are?
Okay. That's been, we started, I think we felt this coming for the last, 6 weeks. So we started hiring some of our full-time staff back, starting about 6 weeks ago. And it's been the best part of this pandemic is to be able to welcome some of our really talented people back into the mix here. So, that's a good thing. And we're starting to go through our career fairs, and now that we'll start bringing some part-time people back to the mix as well. So that's all good, positive energy stuff.
Okay. What is the capacity at TD Place for football?
We're about 25,000.
Okay. What are you anticipating that you'll be allowed to have? Is it impossible to even guess right now, Mr. Goudie?
Well, it's impossible to guess, but it's been reported out there, and Rob, you got to call me Mark, man.
Okay, Mark. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
It's been reported that on behalf of the Ontario provincial or the Ontario professional sports teams, we put a proposal to the province back a couple weeks ago, that tied it to the STEP program that the province has, and when we go into STEP 2, we were for outdoor venues, we were recommending that a third capacity, which is kind of a socially distanced crowd, right, where everybody can can come in separate entrances and stay 2 meters away from each other would be a reasonable approach. And, when we go into step 3, give the province the flexibility to, get up to 100%. That's based on high vaccination rates, right? So I think we've given them hopefully a model to consider as we kind of move our way to full capacity and no restrictions, maybe not day 1. So, Rob, I think we wait and see what that looks like. They promised that they'd get back to us with questions and some thoughts soon. So I hope that's in the next week or so when we enter that dialogue. I hope, that we get to a place by, the end of the season, our last game against the Argos in early November, that we have no restrictions in terms of capacity and we can have 25,000 people there.
You've mentioned, and we've had experts on the program in the past, the CFL is a gate-driven league. It's not a league that gets by on a big, juicy television contract, this kind of thing. You need fans in the stands and ticket sales. I'm wondering what it has been like in particular for sales of season tickets and sales to the corporate sector in Ottawa. I mean, are people calling saying, I want to renew season tickets? What's the demand like?
Yeah, it's been humbling and overwhelming the last 2 years here, 18 months since our last game. I think our numbers in terms of renewals, so this is people renewing into a pandemic, right? Saying, and who have put deposits down and paid for tickets and saying, you know what, I know you're going to get back to playing football and, keep my money and we'll deal with it when we get back to that. It was over 95%. And that's astounding, right? And that's, we were at the top of the list, but that's kind of a theme across the CFL. So, I think that's the affection that people have for the CFL. Not surprisingly, not selling many season tickets over the last year or so, but with the schedule release yesterday, I think we had inquiries from something like 700 people. So I think there's this, this pent up desire to get back to doing things in live sports and entertainment. So, I think we're really enthused by kind of what we're feeling, number one, from our existing fan base that hung with us, which was awesome, but also, the ability to bring some new folks to TD Place and, get back to where we were in 2014 with sold out buildings every day.
And with the entire operation, how would you characterize the state of TD Place, which has certainly been hard hit because of the business closures in hospitality, tourism?
Yeah.
Is it improving now?
It's been boring, right? Like,
well, yeah.
Fateful Friday, March the 13th, 2020 is when we hosted our last event. And today, in fact, this morning, the Ottawa Red Blacks host their first training camp for the basketball team that's starting. So, I think today is officially day 1 of kind of what comes next for TD Place. So, we can start feeling the energy back in the building. We're starting to put some, we got some football dates on the calendar here. We got some blackjack dates on the calendar. We announced our first concert. So, Rob, it's starting to come. And I think, we're going to get to a place that the next 24 months is going to be a pretty active, pretty busy, pretty fun 24 months for us.
Okay. Will Chris Larson be reinstated to the Red Blacks? Will his suspension be lifted?
That's one I'm not going to be able to provide much insight on. Our investigation continues. I know there was some news yesterday from Chris's lawyer, and we're trying to corroborate that news as well. So that's one that I'm going to have to leave alone. We'll continue our investigation, try to understand kind of where we are with that.
Okay, Mark Goudie, thank you for your time.
Always a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Mark Goudie is the president of OSEG. The 11:30 News, next on City News.
local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, the 16th of June. Good morning. I'm Sarah Buchan. Right now in Ottawa, we've got mainly sunny skies, a little breezy out of the west and 16 degrees, mainly sunny and breezy and 16 in Smiths Falls. Here's what's making news this hour. Ottawa Public Health reports 1 new death and 22 new cases of COVID-19 in the capital out of 12 new deaths and 384 new cases across Ontario. Elsewhere locally, Leeds Grenville Lanark Health Unit confirming no new cases, but has added 2 cases from previous dates in a data catch-up. The Public Health Ontario organization reports 1 new case for Eastern Ontario and 3 new cases in Renfrew County, where Health Unit says that as of Monday, 67.1% of county residents aged 12 and up had received at least 1 dose of a COVID-19 vaccine. The local health units update their numbers by the afternoon. With a negative COVID-19 test in hand, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was allowed to check out of an Ottawa quarantine hotel this morning. The PM spent the night there after returning home from his overseas summit trip last evening. His office says the PM will spend 14 days isolating at home and take another COVID test in about a week. And the federal government is kicking $6.4 million in to support the Ottawa Airport for the light rail spur project. The funding helps at a time where airports here and across the country have been strained by pandemic impacts on air travel. The feds are also kicking in over $5.6 million from Transport Canada's Airport Relief Fund. I'm Sarah Buchan. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Strong voice.
Strong opinions.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
We're going to dig a little deeper into this airport story this morning. With the Trudeau government announcing today it's going to put $6.4 million into the construction of the light rail station at the McDonald-Cartier International Airport. $6.4 million. This is part of the spur line to the airport. And the federal government today, Catherine McKenna was there, David McGinty was there, Omar Al-Gabra, he's the transport minister. They call it an important project that they want to, and they want to see it through to its completion. But is it the right project? I've always had my doubts. Just, I don't know how much the route makes sense. But I'm really happy to have David Jeans back on the program here on City News. He's director with Transport Action Canada. Good morning.
Hi, Rob.
Yeah, it's nice to talk to you.
Yes, it's been a little while, but things are happening.
Things are happening. They sure are. What do you think about this announcement today, first of all?
Well, I think it's good. The project to link to the airport had already made it all the way to beside the parking structure at the airport, because that part was at least the elevated guideway has already been built, the concrete guideway. Yeah. But the airport announced last November that they just didn't have the money to build the station, which isn't a very big station. It's just a waiting room and a platform at the same level as the departure area.
Yes, and that's because of the extraordinary year and a half that we have had, and they have more. I remember the CEO of the airport said we were more concerned about paying the utility bills than doing renovations to the house.
Yeah, and today almost half the money that they're getting is actually going towards those costs of operating the airport. It's the $6.4 million that is going to help build the station, and the federal and provincial governments already have a stake in this, because it was their money that allowed the city to include the airport link in the project. The city wasn't really funding that line, and it mostly serves land that is owned by the federal government and leased by the airport. So, it's really meeting the needs of the airport, including their development of lands along Uplands Drive and near the Airport Parkway, which, for example, they've recently announced a big expansion of projects around the Ernst & Young Center.
Part of me says, well, it's you go to any world-class city, and of course you can the public transit is linked to the airport, and if you want, you can get on a train, a bus, a subway, or a streetcar, or whatever the case might be. But does it make sense the way it's being designed for Ottawa?
Well, it obviously has problems.
Yeah.
If you're a business traveler or a tourist with lots of baggage and you're arriving at the airport and going downtown, it's going to be really inconvenient because you'll have a double transfer. You'll have to change at South Keys Station onto the main part of the Trillium line, and then you'll have to change again at Bayview to go downtown. And if it's in the morning, both times you'll be getting on trains that are already full of commuters coming either from the south or from the west end. So that won't be a convenient or attractive trip for those kinds of travelers. However, there are other groups who will probably find it very attractive. Airport employees, they'll be going in the opposite direction to rush hour mostly, and they're traveling all through the day. Shift change times happen much earlier than the peak of the morning rush hour and throughout the day. So we find with these airport systems, and it applies to big hospital complexes too, that a lot of the ridership is employees, not visitors, not travelers.
Okay, that's interesting. That's it. But I do wonder how economically viable that makes a project like this.
Yeah, well, we'll see. The Ernst & Young Center has been very inconvenient except for people driving cars. They have a huge parking lot at that exhibition center.
Yeah.
But if you're going out there to see an exhibition of some sort and you're not going by car, transit has really been very inconvenient. Now there will be the Uplands station, which will be on Uplands Drive right beside the Ernst & Young Center, and that'll be useful there. The airport station, there are groups of people for whom it'll be quite convenient. The student travelers, the backpackers. Remember, it's not very far from the airport to Carleton University, and so people flying into town, students who are headed for the university, particularly if they're going to be in residence at the university or nearby, will find it quite convenient, and probably the cross-platform transfer at South Keys Station won't be that big a deal. Personally, I hope, though, that at some point the city will be able to start running trains all the way through from the airport to Bayview, at least.
Well, yeah, see, this is, I'm going kind of dating myself now, but I do think about my days as when I took the bus every day and lived in the South End. I mean, there was a dedicated 97 that went to the airport.
Yeah, and it still will.
Right.
I think, but
so why wouldn't we have a dedicated train that would go to the airport? We could have, the South Line that ends at South Keys, or now further south that we're is the plan under Phase 2, and then we'll have a dedicated train that goes to the airport back and forth.
They initially looked at other options. For example, during the daytime, very few travelers will be coming from Riverside South in the South End to go downtown. That's mainly a peak hour traffic option. The park and ride lots will be full down there by well before 9 o'clock in the morning, and not that many people will be taking the train during the middle part of the day or in the evening or on weekends. So some people have suggested that it would make more sense for the trains to go to the airport evenings and weekends and middle part of the day, and for people going to South Keys to have to transfer if they're not traveling at peak commute times. So, that's another option. Another option that has been looked at is used in some places, Washington, D.C., on their metro, for example, where every second train goes to a different branch. And you just have to get used to the idea that if you're going beyond South Keys from downtown, you need to make sure you get on the right train, and if you're downtown, because one train will be going to Riverside South and the next train will be going to the airport, and that's been used very successfully in London, England, where on the underground line, which goes right out to the airport, only about every third train goes to the airport, and it's well signposted, and people can adapt to it quite well.
The big picture here, phase one is very much in the rearview mirror now. Phase two of LRT is well underway. We have this announcement today on light rail. Yesterday, $400 million announcement on, or at least committed to light rail, up for discussion today at the Transit Commission on electric buses, electrifying the fleet. So major investments into public transit in the capital region. But when you think about some of the macro trends that have been in place for the last year and a half, people getting out of the city, moving to the suburbs, moving to small towns, people buying cars. We see empty buses rumbling from one end of the city to the other, empty trains going up and down the Confederation line. Do you think that public transit is going to have a comeback with the rest of the reopening, David?
Well, I think it will. It'll be a while before it gets to anything like it was before, but you know, we heard the news today that Canada's already nationwide at 70% first vaccine doses and 14% headed for 20% fully vaccinated. And, you know, the vaccines are rolling out. And as they do, people are going to have a lot less concern about returning to transit. And it has a lot to do with how convenient the trip is, whether it's more convenient to drive all the way downtown and find a parking space there, or just to use a suburban park and ride, or whether the feeder bus network works well and you don't need to drive your car at all. There are people who find that's very convenient, particularly, you know, families with multiple members of the family who are working and maybe going to different parts of the city, to not to have multiple cars.
Okay. Great to hear you, David. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I'm optimistic about it. I hope it's going to work, and I think the money is good, certainly from the airport's point of view.
Okay. David Jeans, Transport Action. We'll be right back. It's 11:44. Sue Sherring is going to join us. We'll talk about the Transit Commission meeting that's happening right now, among other things, city-related, here on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
An old-fashioned traditional grocery store. You're going to find a butcher, okay? You want a steak cut a certain way, you're going to get it. You know, there's flour piled in the warehouse. There's mixers on the floor. There's flour on the floor. The bakery's rented out to Frank Nicolo. It's him and his son come in at night. They mix the dough, they roll the dough, and they bake the dough. It's not the traditional frozen and thaw and put it in the bin, okay? It's made from scratch 7 days a week. It's probably the only bakery left in Ottawa that does that. You know, then customer service, you know, we're big on that. The cashiers, the deli, you're not, if you ask for something, they're not going to point, it's in aisle number 7. They're going to bring you there, okay? If you have too much groceries out, we'll take it out to your car. You know what I mean? There's nothing we don't do for our customers. And we evolved around our customers. They would come in and say, you know, can you try getting me this? You know, can you get me this? So that's how we built the lineup we have now, okay? So we have a lot of unique items that someone that came over to, you know, live in Canada hasn't seen this particular product, but we sourced it and we have it for them that, you know, like something they used to have as a kid. We have a lot of those unique items, a lot, you know, from like all over the world. And we source it through, you know, distributors in Montreal and Toronto that bring in the product in bulk, and we piggyback off of them. Probably the largest European deli in Ottawa. We sell lots because people buy lots. It's nothing really complicated about that. You know, we turn over a lot of product. You know, we package it properly. We buy, and we're always consistent. You know, you're always going to find, you know, Cuddy turkey breast, you know, Saint Daniel mortadella. You're always going to get the same brands. We don't flip back and forth to save 20 cents. It's always the same brands, the last 29 years. Best sandwiches in town. It's simple. It starts off with fresh bread every day baked in the store. Anything that's left over goes to breadcrumbs. So you're getting a fresh bun every day that was baked probably 4 hours before you get here, okay? Not only baked, made, like, you know, mix the flour, roll the dough, proof the bread, and bake the bread, okay? Then all the ingredients come right off the shelves. You know, your lettuce, your tomatoes, all your condiments, and they're cut up fresh in the deli, not like the big, corporate restaurant chains that your lettuce comes in shredded in a bag. You open it up and you throw it in the bin. Takes 2 or 3 days to get here from California. How long is it in the bag? The big difference is like making a sandwich at home, and you don't have to do the work. It's really what the trick is, and using the freshest ingredients possible.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
The $400 million agreement to have the city borrow money to buy electric buses and begin the transition of the bus fleet from diesel over to electric. That is being outlined right now by transit boss John Manconi at the Transit Commission meeting.
I don't want to
this is Councillor
add an
Brockington
extra
right now.
speed bump or hurdle in a process that may have some timely strings attached to it. But Mr. Manconi, it's $1 billion, and my level of comfort can be somewhat addressed by coming before you sign the deal. Wherever this is on the grid here in front of us, you come back to the Transit Commission and you just give us that overview. Give us that level of comfort. So if you're committing to doing that, then I'm okay with 5 and 6 in the recommendation, but I want that noted that you're making that commitment. And that gives me that level of comfort that we just review the tentative agreement that you have with the federal government on these two pieces. And that's what I'm looking for.
Absolutely, and it's been sequenced this way for that reason. We are not granting board approval to Hydro or to Infrastructure Canada or anybody to proceed until council has the final say, and so we can include that as part of the budgeting table process.
Okay.
All the checks and balances are in.
So, Chair, will you note that be placed in the minutes, please, and then I will be okay with those two provisions.
All right. Okay, so it's kind of technical stuff. I mean, it's electrifying the bus fleet and electrifying bus routes, so you have to involve, I guess, the hydro utility, and in the city, that would be Hydro Ottawa. So that's what they're doing right now. That's city business in action right now. Isn't it exciting? Sue Sherring.
You meant it was an electrifying debate. So
it's an electrifying debate. It's an electrifying debate. I see what you did there. Very good.
Ba-doom.
How are things?
Like everyone, I'm
excited,
pretty tired of COVID, and
sure,
and I'm tired of still going to school. So other than that, I'm great.
Right. Have you had a second dose of vaccine yet?
I have not. I have not.
Are you eligible or?
Yes.
You are?
Yes,
okay.
I haven't made the effort yet.
Oh, you haven't made the effort yet? Well, good for you. David called and said you were watching The View. You were watching The View, so I don't want to interrupt you, Okay. All right. You're supposed to be watching the Transit Commission, for crying out loud.
I hate revealing this. I normally watch it. I couldn't get volume.
You couldn't get the volume. Okay.
David
all right.
suggested I just hit volume and it would be okay, but that kind of helpful advice.
Right.
I couldn't make it work, and so there you are.
All right. So what do you think about these are a pair of major kind of transit-related announcements, and you're out there in the burbs. Where the best you can do is maybe endure an hour's ride on the bus during rush hour, say in the before times before COVID. I mean, the woeful bus service to Barrhaven was actually a hot city issue before ridership on public transit went bust. And here we are. This is the city going to borrow hundreds of millions of dollars to electrify the bus fleet. It's a loan, okay? It's a loan. Although to get that out of the mayor, you really got to ask him 4 or 5 different ways. And the same with Councillor Hubley. And now $6.5 million for the airport, because what good are train tracks to the airport if you don't have a train station at the airport?
Well, exactly.
So, right? What do you think about these announcements, Sue? Big money, right?
I guess that is probably the number one concern for everyone. There are going to be people who are going to be jumping for joy. And I'm all for being green, and I push being green in many, many ways. this is a huge number, and I wish it was going to help everyone, and I'm not sure it's going to, and we're all going to pay for it. It's very concerning, that's for sure. There just never seems to be a lack of money when, the mayor has an idea, his followers, are right behind him, and it's a lot of money.
Yeah, and it's money that is, if you listen to the city's spin, it's upper level money. Upper levels of government are coming with this money. So if you're a municipal politician, part of me wants to say, can you really say, if the federal government comes to any municipality and says, we have $400 million and we'd like to spend it on X or Y or Z. But most municipal politicians are going to say, you can spend it on whatever you want. Just invite me to the photo op. Like, when do I need to be there? Right? Yes. I was just, that's the way it works in most cities. Usually Ottawa wouldn't be any different. But then I remember, well, actually, with North-South Light Rail, we did return money. We said, actually, even though the funding agreements are all in place, no, actually, we're not going to do it. Let's hit the reset.
Wasn't that the time that they must have had 3 or 4 different news conferences for the same money? They were held throughout the city, and it's like, we've got a major announcement today.
Yeah. Re-announcement of a re-announcement of a re-announcement.
Just because it's so darn big.
Yeah.
I mean, I think part of what's going for the city now is what appears to be the support of Minister Catherine McKenna, who herself purports to be very green and... absolutely. It's the whole identity, and clearly there's an election on the way, federally. No.
So, you want to shore up your own backyard, right? You're going to be out knocking on, if you're allowed to go out and knock on doors, you're going to be campaigning. So let's make Ottawa's bus fleet the cleanest bus fleet. Let's make sure the cleanest bus fleet and our clean light rail trains can connect to our airport. So, check that off the list.
How much of the population is going to use this?
Well, isn't that the question? And I noticed some sniping back and forth. Bob Chiarelli is becoming a lot more active on social media now. Do you notice that? He's sniping with city councilors. He's going whenever he writes a tweet, he literally tags everybody in the media. All of us. Like, even David Smith, my producer, is getting tagged in his tweets.
Great.
Yeah.
No, I find whatever he's doing to be fascinating. I've been a bit doubtful of the sincerity of his attempt, or his suggestion that he is seriously considering running for mayor. But with this deluge of tweets, I'm second guessing myself again.
Well, I mean, it's not just...
He definitely is raising attention.
Yeah, it's not just the deluge of tweets. It's that he's exhibiting, some serious concern and knowledge of the issues and touting his experience. The other day I saw a picture of him on social media, and which he was on the exercise bike, and he's... got his shorts on, and he's like, you have to stay in shape, and it's important to exercise. Like, the guy's like 81 years old or something like that, right? And by the time it's election time, he'll be 82 or 83.
I think I thought he was 79.
Whatever.
I know, but I mean, obviously...
Like, he wants to put that thing to rest, like, right out of the gate, like, no, I'm not too old for the job, kind of thing, right? Yeah.
And I don't believe he is. And it's got nothing to do with the fact that I'm 61.
No, but I just, like you, I find it interesting. And, he's done, look, when he was a cabinet minister with the McGinnity and then Wynne Liberals, it was very rare that I could get him to come on my show when I was at the other radio station. Like, you could call his office every week. We would like to get an interview with... And he had some big portfolios, like infrastructure minister, and then he was the hydro minister, and... like, big jobs.
Well, do you remember how easy it was to get him when he was in opposition?
Yeah, and now, since he's made it known that he's thinking about running for... He's been on my show twice in, like, a month.
Yes.
Yeah. So, that, it's... I think he's serious. I think he's seriously giving it a run, and I think the campaign would be better for it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Not because I'm a big Bob Shirley fan or anything, but it'll make it a battle of ideas, and we'll see how it turns out. So what's your afternoon viewing, Sue?
I think I'm going to keep that to myself, Rob.
Okay, all right. Get on that second dose. Okay, that's the key to getting back to normal.
All righty.
Okay. Thank you, Sue Sherring. We'll talk soon.
Thank you, Rob.
Yep,
Snow.
bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Sue Sherring writes weekly for the Ottawa Sun, and that's it for the Rob Snow Show for today. We're back tomorrow. Randall Denley will join us with The Citizen. He's been writing about city issues this week.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.